of the Ojai Planning Commission is being called to order on Wednesday, January 7th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Who is in the...
Sherry.
Sherry? Sherry, would you call a roll, please?
Chair Murphy.
Here.
Vice Chair Chesley.
Here.
Commissioner Rice Schmidt.
Here.
Commissioner Graham absent.
Thank you. Katrina, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Nope.
Okay. Public communications is next on our agenda. Is there anyone here who needs to speak to the general public communications item? Sherry, is there anyone online?
No.
Okay. We will move to the consent items. The minutes of the regular meeting of December 3rd have been supplied to us. Have you had a chance to review them? Any changes? I would entertain a motion to accept. Approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Sherry, roll call.
Rice Schmidt.
Yes.
Chesley.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to our discussion item of the evening, which is Title 10, Allowed Uses and Permit Requirements for Residential, Commercial, Manufacturing, and Special Purpose Zoning Districts, as well as the definitions in conditional use permit and minor conditional use permit standards and process. At this point, I will turn the meeting over to Lucas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, good evening, commissioners, good evening, community, everybody that's online. The item before you tonight is a discussion. There's no decisions being made. The wonderful thing about this is we get to have a discussion about the item that is before us tonight, kind of sort through it, ask questions. I'll go through a little bit of history, and then I'll provide some clarification as I'm seeing the subject heading line right now, and based on the information that I also submitted and provided as attachments. So the kind of the purpose for tonight is twofold. One is the commission at the last meeting or the meeting before that had asked for this item, which was on future agendas, to be brought before for discussion. And it's twofold. One is it has information as it relates to the use chart for residential, commercial, industrial, those special use areas. In addition to that, tied to those pieces are the definitions, and then also tied to that is conditional use permits, minor conditional use permits, and the discussion that would go on with that. What I would like to do for tonight, being that we don't have all four here, is focus on the use chart and the definitions, and then give a little bit of background as to why we're having the conversation in the first place. So guess what? In 2019, when I first started here, just to give everybody a little history lesson, there was a large discussion about the inconsistencies with the zoning code, and that's what I'm talking about specifically is Title 10. It was taken up by myself and the chair at the time, Mr. Quillisi, to really kind of comb through the entire thing and create some consistency top to bottom. I would say there was more than 20 meetings that this body held and discussed in great detail. When we had each of those meetings, we seemed to find stuff that was, quote unquote, a deeper dive. In one of those conversations and meetings, this item came up, which was the use chart, the way in which it operates, and has a conversation with the definitions. So before we really kind of dove into it, we hit on a couple of really light things to kind of brush over it, and then realized that there was a much deeper discussion. This is one of those deeper discussions that we're going to get to have tonight. I don't anticipate it being a one-meeting discussion. The nice thing about these discussions is there's questions that come up. If I can't necessarily answer them, guess what I get to do? I get to go and do the research. But I will say this. In the conversation we're having tonight, the discussion we're having tonight, there may be an opportunity for one of you to also help me as a staff person navigate some of these questions and even maybe some of the revisions that we're looking at potentially making. I'd like to also have that conversation sometime tonight. It was very helpful to have Steve at the helm helping me, providing some of that research, having that clarifying conversation, because what ended up happening is during those 20 or so meetings we brought it back to this full body, is the conversation was, here it is, this is what we've come up with, what do you think? And then we'd have conversations about the red lines that were coming forward. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it was all design and sunshine and rainbows. We really rolled our sleeves up and did some of that good work. That's what they call some of this stuff that we're doing right now. Wordsmithing to a certain degree, but also providing clarification to some of the inconsistencies that still exist, but on a much deeper level. The surface piece, I think, is probably 95% addressed, but there's some deeper stuff here. Even when I was going through it this afternoon, I saw a lot of inconsistencies in how the use chart either does or doesn't conversate with the glossary. And a lot of the times when you're looking at these pieces, especially with this zoning code, those two pieces typically should be like this and not necessarily like this, right? And if they do that, then there's got to be some way in which to navigate that. A lot of the times you'll see communities or cities that actually have definitions built into specific articles. That exists in some of the sections. Here, with the sections that have been provided for tonight, all of those definitions live within the glossary, which is the very last article for Title 10. So it's the history piece. I kind of started touching on some of the concerns. I wanted to open it up for conversation before I go into some of the deeper stuff. Do you guys have any questions in terms of where we're potentially going? If you want, I can even talk about kind of the makeup of how these articles are created and some of the purposes. I know Carrie can probably chime in on some of this stuff as well. The intent, typically with these, the way these are set up, these articles, like let's say, for instance, with Title 10, Chapter 2, which is zoning regulations, the residential zoning districts, there's a purpose. That purpose statement really kind of guides that reader through what the regulations are. And those regulations tend to revolve around objective and subjective matters. The objective matters tend to be the matters as it relates to setbacks and height, number of stories. It's pretty straightforward. The subjective pieces tend to be buried a little bit further. And then, like, for instance, in the residential, there's even a section that talks about solar access and making sure that continues to be something of primary purpose. From a use standpoint, Table 2.2 is really 2.2, and I want to say it's like 2.4 maybe. 2.5, no, I think it's 2.4. Yeah, 2.4, and I think it's 2.6. Those are the tables we're really going to be, table 2.6 are the ones that we're going to be kind of focusing on tonight, or at least the ones that I'd like to focus on tonight in terms of a discussion. I've taken the liberty of actually going through each one of these uses and then comparing them to whether or not there is an associated definition with each of these. And just to give a little bit of context, we actually, this body, Chair Murphy, you might not have been here when we were having this conversation. You might have come on just as we were having this conversation. But there was an idea of creating a use chart that that created consistency across the board. Right now, what we're looking at here with the use charts with all three of these is kind of a broken up allowed uses piece where some of them have overlapping uses that are identified and some of them do not. I can tell you that when you're looking at a use chart from a planning standpoint, you want some consistency between the two, right? So if you're looking at a use chart for a specific zone, you want that use chart to identify all the same uses that are being also criticized or identified within the C1 or within the residential or within the manufacturing. You want that consistency, right? That doesn't exist. That's the first thing that I think this body noticed a few years back. What came out of that discussion was the idea of merging all these into one super use chart, which was kind of interesting. Started diving into that, but I'll just tell you that there was maybe an hour spent on that. So it's one idea. The thing that I'm noticing, I want to say there's probably 30 definitions, maybe more, that don't correlate directly with these uses. It's very interesting when I did that quick, because Steve and I had done that initial conversation and went through the use chart and realized that the two didn't mesh. A lot of times they did, but there was also a lot that just didn't. We have a use that suddenly, now that's not to say that the zoning code is obsolete or it can't be complied with, because it says very specifically within the definitions that if a use is not identified, then guess who gets to make up the definition? The director. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of coming up with definitions. Instead, I'd like to already have that in the code, or at least to reference it with a use that's maybe being considered. So there's a little bit of inconsistencies with the way in which one use chart is speaking or not speaking to the definitions piece. So I'm open for a conversation or questions or comments at this point. And then we, obviously with this being a discussion, if the community would like to weigh in, certainly encourage that as well. This is fun for me. I love doing this.
I'm not hearing a lot up here. We're not yet. Okay.
Well, I think it's an opportunity to let it soak in. I think at the same time, this is a two-way street in terms of the conversation. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that you have all the answers right now. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have all the answers. But I do know this. The way in which each of these articles are identified, at least within the use chart piece, there needs to be something done. And it's something that we as a department continue to struggle with. We've just figured it out at this point, but it's the squeaky wheel. It's one of the squeaky wheels that needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for bringing it up either a meeting or two ago. So
I looked at it pretty closely, and I don't think it's that bad. I think it works. I know there's a couple of things in here that I said, well, I didn't necessarily agree with, something not being permitted. And one was in the residential zone, one of the larger zones, it wasn't allowed to have crops. But I know for sure that at least 2 properties in the city are Pixie tangerine growers. Mm-hmm. And we want that. We want to keep that. And it's part of what Ojai is all about, and why isn't it allowed in these zones? It's already happening. So there's a couple of those instances that I think we should amend that. But from a chart perspective, if it's not in here, the way I look at it is you can't possibly think of everything. And when somebody comes in with something new that hasn't been seen before, that's an opportunity to, one, look at it as a CUP, possibly. Well, I think that's the way the direction is you have to do a CUP, but That's one of those things where we can tag our zoning ordinance and say, you know what? That's gonna go in the next round of revisions. We didn't think of that before. But I don't think this chart needs a lot of time, personally. That's my opinion. I mean, I saw a lot of inconsistencies. There was, I can tell you, like a footnote wasn't referenced right or something like that, which I picked up on. But, I mean, we can go line by each land use. Some of those were a little, I said, well, you know, a bed and breakfast is, a CUP's required in the C1, but it's permitted in the BP. That doesn't make sense to me. So things
Yeah.
like that. But overall, I think it's actually decent.
Yeah, and okay, so maybe I came on harsher than maybe was intended. The piece that I'm talking about, I know you're actually getting into kind of the use aspect and whether or not something is a P, an MUP, a CUP, or just not allowed. And if it's not identified within the code, it's and there's a process for that. So it's weighed really kind of by the planning commission, either by a conditional use permit, or we just identify that it continues to not be allowed. The discretion is mine, but the reality is if it's a new use, guess who's going to be seeing it? This body. That only makes sense.
It would help me if you could explain how it was decided that something would require a CUP or be permitted. I'm looking at the bottom of page 2 of 63. A mobile home outside of a park is allowed in R1, but not any of the other zones. How does that kind of decision get made? Why would that be?
Which page are you on?
I'm
Sorry.
on page 2 of 63, the bottom of the
Attachment.
chart.
Attachment A.
Attachment A?
Yeah. It's like the second page in the, it's the back of chapter 2.
All right.
At the very bottom.
My guess,
Yeah. No, go ahead.
this is a guess, is that way back when, mobile homes were probably not desirable in Ojai. And so they had to allow mobile homes in a residential zone, so they picked R1.
Yeah.
But if you look in the definitions, you'll see the mobile home, if it's on a permanent foundation, is considered a single family. So you can actually put a mobile home in any residential zone if it's on a foundation. So, and that's in the definitions,
Outside of a park.
outside
I
of.
think
Yeah.
that's the.
Yeah.
I mean, what's I think interesting about how you're bringing it up, and not to say that sort of how some of this is organized isn't right, but I guess the other piece also is like, the zoning map itself, which it feels like, and I've seen it where, to your point, it's like you have all of the possible uses on one side. And it's not that you have like a row along the top, but you're just listing which, within the exercise of understanding how to look at this as a single thing, the residential, the commercial, and the other, I think can sort of like, we'll look at that question, for example. Because then you have to be like, well, here is a multifamily dwelling. We're not just saying, is it a residential use? Is it in a commercial use? Is it in a, it's like, what is it in? And we look at all of those things kind of equally. And I think in a way, I guess, I don't know how one considers what comes first or what comes second, but looking at the zoning map, well, it's kind of like, well, what is the zoning map also telling us? And I guess if we take one as being primary and the other being secondary in a way, I mean, the question that I've had from like early on in joining the commission is about the village mixed use and being able to have a single family residence within it, and how that serves the purpose of a village mixed use. And if, there's like a whole thing to discuss there. And then if you look at the map and you see where it is, and that kind of adds to the conversation. So I could see work around like, kind of like a couple of almost like diagrams of these two things together. And that's how you're sort of, I guess it's like a check. Like how are we doing so far? Well, we said these things, are we missing these others as we try to want to fill out this other way of organizing this information?
Yeah, I think for how I was looking at this, and it's the wonderful thing about having this conversation. For me, it's kind of setting the table for the discussion, which is the way in which this use chart, I think to Katrina's point, it feels like it's already in really good shape, right, in terms of how it operates. I think the concern that I have is anytime that we're looking at those different uses, we have found instances where the use doesn't have a definition, and then we're having to figure that out, or the definition isn't necessarily an apples to apples piece, where we're like, we think it's this. The determination is really up to me at the end of the day. I'd rather have a more clear-cut approach to it. Does it work? I agree, it works. Is it a little frustrating at times? Yeah. I don't know that I could think of a zoning code that I've worked in other cities where I'm like, this is perfect. It's not perfect. It just isn't. I agree with that. To your point in terms of like doing a comparative piece, I like that idea of like taking the zoning, kind of having that conversational piece. Obviously there's some opinions and some thoughts in terms of how some of these areas are either identified as a P, not allowed, a CUP, or an MUP. Those are all interesting conversations. I think first, understanding the baseline of what we're looking at doing, and then second, diving into those specific uses and doing that comparative piece and using some kind of interesting examples that are either live or have been considered.
Yeah, and I don't think the comparative is like saying that the way Table 2.2 works in its relationship to Title 10, in the residential section, standing alone within it, that might still make a lot of sense. But to have another thing that's kind of like a master that allows you to look at it across the board, and then here's like, okay, now we can go to the specific one and really like dive in a bit more. They might be, supportive in a way.
Sure.
Yeah, one thing I was going to note from a legal standpoint, one thing to note from a legal standpoint, in the absence of definitions and where you're trying to see if something fits, I think that could over time lead to an inconsistent application of the code. You as the director might interpret the definition this way and apply it this way. Going forward, a future director or someone might interpret it differently. Or if you don't interpret it the same on a case-by-case basis, it's an inconsistent application of law. And so maybe having a more pristine definition to guide you is recommended.
I do know that when I worked in the county of Santa Barbara, they had the director would do, or there was a person specifically had this job, so it wasn't the director, but they had the job of doing interpretations. And so they were, if there was an interpretation done, it was written, and it was basically, it wasn't codified, but it was a written interpretation, and the planners would reference those. So if it wasn't in the book, they would reference the legal, well, not legal, I don't know if it's legal, I guess it is legal, but the person in charge of doing the interpretations, that was how it stood. And so the planners would reference that. And in the future, those interpretations would get incorporated into the code. I could see a process like that happening here too. You have a written interpretation, it goes in a file that we can reference, or until such time.
That's actually a good idea.
It's like setting a precedent for the.
It's
Right.
Yeah.
I like the consistency piece is the thing that I'm always trying to battle. I'm like, okay, what was the decisions that we've made in the past? Because this doesn't feel like I've got like a squeaky clean approach to what we're doing here. And then we're using institutional knowledge to try to remember, oh, well, we did it this way in this thing. And I'm like, all right, well, that's
not.
The interpretation piece. I remember Pasadena doing something very similar to what you just described years ago. So here's the thing. That's an interesting idea as it relates to kind of how we flush some of this out. I could take that back, do some research, see what other cities have done, other counties have done, some of the success stories there, and maybe that's something we could come back and kind of give some examples. I like that.
And another thing, when we're going through these tables, I think it's absolutely necessary that we all have the map, because it really matters.
Is it not
They
on the,
are- Yeah, it matters, because I downloaded this, the latest map is 2008.
yes.
And when you're thinking about land uses and and you can identify, oh, here's the RO1 zone, and you can see where they are
Yeah.
and what makes sense. And so I think when we're going down, if we're gonna do that, line by line, we have to know where these zones are in our city.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Because there's kind of like, I mean, there's clear, especially in the residential, there's like a clear kind of like stepping of allowances, of uses. Yeah, mostly related to density. And so you kind of, yeah, it's, how is that diagram out, you know? Because it could be the diagram, like you could imagine that's like, well, the main street is the tallest street, and then you're like tapering out from there, you know? That's not quite what happens, but.
Okay. I agree with the zoning map being included for future reference.
How does the state law that continually changes affect this? How do you incorporate the
You're talking
the
about-
new state
You're
laws?
talking about
like
density
ADU,
law, density
yeah.
bonus. There's a number of regulations that we have either reference in our zoning code, or we have our own kind of interpretation, skating and making sure that we're still in line with government code. ADU law is another one. In terms of zoning, there's not a whole lot that government code provides. It gives us a lot of latitude there. Some of the details that exist within that, I think, begin to get a little bit blurry. Like, for instance, any sort of affordable housing within the residential. Once you hit that category, all bets are off if you're hitting certain density and you're hitting certain affordability rates. That's for another discussion. I know. I think your office is looking at a conversation piece to educate.
Sure. Brian, come on up.
It's Connor.
Oh, Connor?
Since this is a discussion, could I,
Yes, come up so we can hear your, and introduce yourself again.
Thank you so much. My name is Connor. I'm the new reporter with Ojai Valley News. I have something of an obtuse question. Are you guys discussing reducing ambiguity in the use chart through expanding existing definitions, or are you talking about reducing ambiguity in the city's zones by potentially changing the map? I'm sorry. Does that make sense? Is that okay?
Not changing
sorry.
the map.
Got it. Okay.
It's really more definitions and use chart.
Thanks.
Yeah. Map is a bigger discussion.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
But I think it is in the sense, so the map is not changing. So you work through all this stuff, assuming the map is correct. You might uncover some things as you're doing that. And then there's actually a reason to, or like a clear kind of path to talking about the map, if that were to be something that was also important to look at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know there's a couple things in the map that probably should be changed, and I'm sure the property owners would love to have them changed, but just haven't done it because it's quite costly to go through, the process. So maybe at some point we can look at that too.
You have ideas?
I have a couple.
Okay.
Well, mainly those that are public, quasi-public, zoned, that have single-family residences on,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing.
Okay.
There's a couple sprinkled here in this neighborhood.
There
that I know
are.
of.
You're right. Can we, what might actually make sense for that one is having a separate discussion, just talking about some of the different ideas on, I don't want to call it rezone, but maybe zoning consideration or alternative zoning, maybe something like that. Because I don't want to call it rezone at this point. It's a little bit more, there's a lot of depth to the rezone. I think in the 6 years that I've been here, going on 7, I've only done one rezone, and it was highly contentious, and there's a lot of discussion that went on with it. So,
These I would think wouldn't be contentious.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm open. I look, as long as this body is open for the discussion, and then kind of sorting through the pros and cons, there's a whole little analysis that can be done to kind of tease out what we're looking at versus what it potentially changes to, and the pros and cons to it.
So what do you think, Lucas? I mean, should we go through it? I mean, would
So
that be an ideal situation, or
I am 100% all on board with going through the use chart line by line if you want. I did it this morning.
I guess my only hesitation with it is like,
We could also hit up on some items that are, that I noticed maybe, or maybe you noticed, and maybe focus on those.
yeah, maybe that's a good way to start.
Okay. Does somebody want to start?
Well, I can start with just a couple.
Okay.
So, page 2 of 63, crop production, horticulture. I think in the RO2 and RO1, they should be CUPs.
So you're saying RO2, RO1, CUP.
Right. Because they basically have the same definition as RO4.
Yeah.
It's just a different,
They're just smaller,
smaller,
typically smaller lots.
but they're still like within the,
RO1, so this is a good one. So you look at the RO1, it's mainly up the top of Signal, top of Montgomery, top of Daly Road, RO1, and the Arbolada,
Mm-hmm.
Del Oro. So a lot of those properties don't have a lot of room for an orchard, say, but some are large enough. And if they're large enough, why not? Allow them to have trees.
Now, if you were to do a CUP, what would be the purpose of the CUP? To provide some sort of regulation as it relates to maybe size, hours of
Size,
operation,
yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, when you can,
Regulating noise. I mean, noise already would be regulated through well, actually, it's not even allowed, so it wouldn't be regulated. Pesticides, sure. So, okay. So that kind of makes sense. Because anytime you're looking at a CUP, I'm always wondering, okay, so why are we doing a CUP? It's something that runs with the land, and then depending on from owner to owner, they've always got to agree with those conditions. So-
and, you know, harvest time, you know, trucks have to come in and other people
Sure.
into your neighborhood, so your neighbors may have an issue, and it gives the neighbors an opportunity to come to the public hearing.
Okay. I also want to note that there is a clear definition for crop production and horticulture. So the connection is very clear there. If we're on the same page, which is page 2, the definition that I noticed didn't match was animal keeping, the very first one. If you look at that definition, it just doesn't
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And I will admit, when I first came on, there was an animal keeping ordinance that was being considered at that time. We never ended up going anywhere with it, mainly because the community members that were very interested in it, the council members that were interested in it, ended up, the community members ended up moving, so they were no longer interested, and then the council ended up changing, so.
Yeah, so I did notice, and I have it in my notes on animal keeping, is, you know, the rooster issue.
Yeah, so that was the discussion in 2019, 2020, while we were talking about animal keeping. I was always under the impression that roosters weren't allowed.
And we had an ordinance that said they weren't allowed at one point. And
They're in my neighborhood.
And and then we had an animal keeping ordinance that I don't know what happened to that ordinance, but I do know that when I was at the city working as the city planner, we would reference this ordinance
So now,
about the roosters.
yeah, and it's
But
very
it's
interesting.
not
I don't know if
existing
in
now.
2000, so for the audience, and you know, Katrina, I think you remember this. There was a significant code update that took place in 2004, and I'm not sure during that time something was revised, or during the time in which you ended up leaving between 2011 and all the way up to 2019, something happened. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Instead, what it is we've been using animal control to address situation at certain times because we're under contract with them.
Yeah, so it may still exist here. I'll look for it.
If
But
it's buried
an
somewhere, I'm
animal
looking forward
permit
to it because
is
I've
required,
yeah.
right? I'll look for it.
Yeah. If you
But,
find it,
I mean-
I look forward to having that conversation at the next meeting.
Okay, just because, if roosters are allowed, I mean, if you go on Facebook, Ojai Community Network, people are talking about roosters. Are they allowed in the city? Are they not?
So when we were doing the animal keeping, we actually had a very strict standard that identified roosters were not going to be allowed. And I had a room full of people when we had that conversation that said that they needed roosters. And I was like, well, that's weird. Okay. So then we need them or we don't? Because we were also talking about large animals versus the smaller animals. And then whether or not we get into exotic animals as it relates to the animal keeping. It was a riveting conversation that we had.
Okay, so I think with the animal raising and keeping definition, I think the intent was, when it says does not include birds, cats, dogs, and other household pets, those are automatically allowed
Yep.
without, but that is not clear in the definition. So it needs a clarification, that those are allowed without.
Or what's exotic?
Or, yeah, and what's exotic?
I started going down that rabbit hole, and I found myself lost in tunnels.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of different code sections during that time that cities use or don't use or clarify or don't clarify.
Why are exotic animals exempt?
They're not allowed.
Well, no,
Whoa.
so
It
the way the
says-
definition reads, it says animal raising and keeping. The non-commercial keeping or raising of farm animals, including cattle, goats, horses, sheep, swine, including pot-bellied pigs, fowl, poultry, and other animals determined by the director not to be common household pets. Does not include birds, cats, dogs, and other household pets or exotic animals. So in my mind, when you're reading that, that means birds, cats, dogs, other household pets are allowed.
Okay,
They're
yeah.
okay,
But an exotic animal, I mean, you could have a lion, who knows?
Well, they
but no elephants.
I think if you look and if you were to just do a search for exotic animals, I think this is the only area in our code that it's referenced. So
Can you search for animal permit?
I'm actually gonna search right now just out of curiosity. But let's continue the conversation while I look this up.
Anyway, yeah, that's a good one too.
Just to get it off my list of things,
All right.
page 37. C and D at the top. In a large family daycare home, you're talking 7 to 14 children. In a small family daycare home, you're talking 8 or fewer. You have to get those numbers aligned.
I did, you know what, that's funny, I noticed that this morning, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense, 7 to 14, but
Yeah.
then we say anything that is, for the small daycare is
8 or fewer.
8 or fewer. I'm like, well, that's an overlap that's not supposed to be happening.
That's a problem.
That's a challenge.
Um,
Duly noted.
Okay.
I think that might be from state code, state law.
So here's the fun thing, like what you had mentioned, thank you for mentioning that, by the way. I do have to check state law on that one because I think there are parameters. And there's also parameters that we may not be able to even touch the way in which this is operated because those operations may be handled solely at the state level. I'm dealing with one right now.
So you could tell the state law that they need to fix it.
Yeah, you get to go on their state website and navigate
Complain.
through their
Okay.
process to provide comment. Yeah.
I had another question. You know, all the use tables has reference to the growth allocation pursuant to the city's residential and commercial growth management plan.
So yeah, there's an easy answer to that one. So we do an annual review of that. However, state law has basically said that we cannot enforce this. And I think they had it until 2030, and I don't know if it's been pushed even beyond that at this point. So
So we can remove that.
well, okay, so the last time I brought it forward, it was more like, hey, we can't enforce this, but we're just keeping track of the numbers at this point. So just be aware of it. It's just kind of a receive and file at this point. Could we remove it? I think that's a conversation to have because at this point they've pushed it out and I think it's actually like either 10 or 15 years now before we can even start regulating it again. And who knows what the numbers are going to be by then. So
Well, that's kind of a
it's
hot button
worth-
issue.
it
Might as well
is-
keep it in.
it is kind of a hot button. I think there was at least at some point a very brief discussion on it, and probably as brief as our conversation right now, on it a few years back, when it first came forward that basically that regulation was being frozen. So.
There is an animal-related ordinance, 933 at Title V, that it talks about animal provisions. And there is something talking about wild animal control section at Title V.
Microphone.
Microphone.
You had asked where the animal permits were, and I'm not sure if this is a reference to which you were making. I think Title V, based on an ordinance that was Ordinance 933, contains provisions on wild animal control section, and other animal provisions at Title V.
So these are specifically taken from the county's regulations. So we basically adopted their regulations. That's what we're looking at here. It was recently actually just adopted by City Council, I want to say the end of 2024. So,
And this is in reference to the daycare?
no,
Or the animals.
this is in reference to the animal
And-
piece that
oh,
you were
the
talking
animals.
about. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know that it goes in, okay, so I typed in exotic animals and it takes me directly to Title V, basically. But it doesn't mention there's no exotic animals. Instead, it references wild animals.
okay, and there's no permit process for animal permit?
It says it's regulated by the Animal Control Department as
Oh.
opposed to a separate permit issued by this body.
Yeah.
And it also indicates that.
Microphone.
Microphone, Carrie.
Oh, we're having a discussion.
Yeah, it's for the record.
My apologies. It mentions that Animal Control Department should be contacted. These animals are regulated by that division. And maintaining wild animals or reptiles requires adequate confinement and control. I don't know any other, it doesn't specify further.
So really what's happened, I mean, since I've been here, I think it was even before I was here, is we've taken on these regulations. So Title V is where all this lives now. To your reference, maybe in 2004, there may have been some sort of carve out. That's obviously been removed and now this lives here.
Okay. So, in absence of any ordinance regarding roosters, they are allowed in the city as long as they're quiet?
So now we get into the noise situation and I can just tell you that it typically involves, I think every instance is required code compliance to get involved. Why? Because they're crowing at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I have a
Right.
co-compliance officer that's here at 6. So we're checking in on it, and we're finding ways in which to move them along. Very rarely have we had, and I can't think of one right now in the 7 years I've been here, where we've had a resident that's like, I'm not getting rid of it. So it's been a slippery slope to a certain degree, kind of uncertain in terms of how to regulate, but it seems like we're batting 1,000 for people being agreeable to finding solutions.
Okay.
But I don't want to sit here and pretend, because the conversation that I remember having in 2019 when I first came on, I was like, yeah, let's just outlaw them. And I just had a room full of people. And I was like, maybe we shouldn't do that. That's not a good idea. Maybe we should find a way to compromise. They're like, yeah, that's what we should do. And I'm like, okay, well, then I think that's what's come out of it. But here's the thing. Interpretation, like you were talking about in the beginning, that could actually go a long ways in terms of helping co-compliance and helping the rest of staff navigate beyond my years here. I think that would be helpful in creating some sort of a log for that.
Yeah. Well, okay. I do think that animal raising and keeping, I agree with you, that needs to be updated.
Okay. So
Definition.
The
here's
definition.
here's what I would offer for that one. I would need someone here to help in that effort, in some of the research and navigating revisions through a red line format. Because I was going to bring it up anyway, but I'm glad that you brought it up already. Not in terms of taking it as far as an animal keeping ordinance, but just clarifying the definition, teasing it out more. Not everybody at once.
Well, I'm just thinking, animal keeping is permitted now. This is a newer ordinance than when I was familiar with it. It wasn't permitted across the board. So you couldn't have farm animals at your house. And at one point, the city had an ordinance about keeping horses. So do we have something like that anymore? No.
No,
And
that
so
was a
there
part of the
was-
animal keeping ordinance that never.
Yeah,
went anywhere.
that was part of the animal keeping. So you needed a certain amount of space per horse. So I think we need that still. So I think, we're allowing animal keeping with no regulations whatsoever. I think that's,
Yeah.
uh,
The waste was the biggest discussion that we had in terms of managing that.
yeah. So I don't know, that's a little concerning to me. I think we
Rest of the
need to
commission feel
have,
that way? Because I already have something in the hopper that we could work on from that standpoint. So a jumping off point. Meaning, I had prepared an ordinance 6 years ago. This body had discussed it, we could bring it forward and dust it off and see how much needs to be revised at this point.
Or do you want to put that within the scope of a committee that goes through each of the definitions?
That's an idea.
well, it seems to me animal keeping should be permitted. I mean, it is Ojai, we're rural, it seems consistent with our community, but it does seem like it needs some kind of minimum regulations. So I think there needs to be a separate ordinance, like we had at one point. It was a long time ago.
I'm open
Anyway,
to
I
the
just-
conversation.
Okay,
There's an ordinance that had been drafted at one point, and that could be discussed before this body again as a part of the animal keeping piece, as a part of the definition. Now, maybe the animal keeping ordinance doesn't go anywhere, but at least have that conversation. See, the nice thing about having a discussion is there's no decisions being made. We can go as deep into the rabbit hole as we want on some of these issues.
so that's line
It's
one.
worthwhile.
Well, yeah, that's line one.
You kind of did line 2 also.
Yeah, we're moving quite along. Okay, so in that first page, I'm hearing animal keeping, definition, and
Crop.
and have that conversation regarding animal keeping ordinance, discussion, crop production, horticulture, looking at a CUP within the RO2, RO1. And just for reference, RO2 and RO1 refers to the number of acres, so the minimum number of acres in those cases is RO1 requires 1, RO2 requires 2. Just so everybody's playing at home too. So then we jump down to the rest of this: community center, equestrian facility, golf course, guest house, home occupation, and then the last one was mobile home outside of a park.
When you talk about the guest house line, as I understand it, a guest house and an ADU are different only in the kitchen facility.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Yep.
And an ADU is allowed by law,
By right.
by right.
Material, and then just has a historical context for the ADUs, because it is on here as a second residential unit, which is basically an ADU. We used to review these as a second-story ADU, but I was made aware by legal that we cannot do that. So
Second story is out now also?
we can't review it. Second stories as an addition that's not an ADU absolutely comes before this body.
But if
Very
it's an
clear in the
ADU, it's okay.
Correct.
Wow, okay. Why would they need a CUP in each of the districts or zones for a guest house, which seems like a lesser structure?
Do you want me to give you the planning response? So
Whatever.
guest houses and ADUs, before tiny houses or junior ADUs were even a thought, guest houses were the kind of the solution to, or a thought process before ADUs really became something. So what would happen is cities would come in and say, well, let's allow a guest house. But we want to make sure that guest house is appropriate, designed appropriately, located in an appropriate location, has all the meets all the standards. You would typically do that through a zoning clearance, but if you apply a CUP, which you absolutely have every right, a community has every right to do that, you deter guest houses from going into communities, because there's a higher litmus test, a design review body that you have to come before, versus just checking the boxes. So CUPs can be used just as,
A deterrent,
well, it can be used as a tool. I mean, you can call it a deterrent to this,
okay.
to what we're looking at here. I think it was deterrent. The same thing is true with ADUs. When ADUs first came on, they required CUPs and highly contentious. I mean, when I first moved here from the Midwest and I went to my first ADU hearing, I was like, why is this, there's a bunch of people in the audience talking about another unit that's a secondary unit.
Yeah.
Highly contentious. That has all gone by the wayside. But guest houses remain. And state law hasn't touched that at this point. I don't think that they will, given
Well,
its context.
Why wouldn't we just change all those CUPs to permitted then? At
We
this point?
could. I mean, it is kind of an old standard by which to operate to deter it. I mean, you could end up requiring it just to be permitted.
I mean, in
I-
my mind, it's more like an accessory building.
It really kind of is.
Property.
It's like a glorified pool house. Not to
Yeah.
say that everybody has pool houses here, but if you do, I mean, it basically is the same thing as a guest house.
I do know that one of the reasons why they had a CUP on the guest houses, because in the past, we were not so in support of housing, additional housing, intensifying our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So the CUP was one way to require a deed restriction to the property owner, saying that one, and there's a lot of them in town, one has to be owner occupied, the property, and it cannot have more than 2 plumbing fixtures. So you can have a washer and a sink, but you can't have a toilet. You can't, so the idea was that nobody's gonna be living there. That's a guest house. So you can have a bathroom, so it was deed restricted.
Yeah.
Um,
It is.
you know,
it-
so it would not turn into an ADU.
right.
It's a
And
little,
so that mentality is out the door.
but it's also funny because it says persons permanently employed on the premises, which is a little bit, yeah,
Well,
but
they would have to come inside the main house.
to use the
Use the
kitchen.
kitchen.
seems unlikely.
Yeah. So in my mind, unless we really don't want to promote guest houses, guest houses or pool houses, let's make it a P, because it's less intense than a second unit.
It is.
It's permitted. It's still going to have to go through, as you said, the zoning check. So it's still going to have to
Yeah, it's gonna have to meet the
adhere to
setbacks.
the setbacks and to the build percentage for
Yeah.
the site and all that. And it's,
I
Okay, so-
don't see a reason
Well,
for a CUP.
so
But
for-
the one thing that I would say from a control standpoint, so you think about ADU law, it very strictly identifies like design consistency with the main residence. I'm not sure that that's built into the guest house piece, so you probably lose some of that. But I also, the deed restriction thing is interesting because that was across the board for the longest time. And I was like, oh, I guess that's just the thing. And then it got taken off the table for ADUs, and it was like, oh. But then guest houses weren't mentioned anywhere in government
Because
code.
they didn't fit the
Didn't
definition.
didn't fit the bill of what was, some of the purposes that were being driven at that time.
would it just be a clarifying, maybe like if the guest house is visible from the street, then it requires a design?
Well, no, single story doesn't require design review.
Correct.
Even a new,
So you could effectively have a guest house that has a modern design, but then the front house is colonial or.
yeah, yeah.
Gives me shivers.
It's a bit against my religion, but I mean,
That's a bigger design.
well, I mean,
conversation.
things old, old and new can come together nicely also,
Yeah, I
but,
I don't disagree with that I don't disagree with that statement. The context of that statement, though, a lot of the times when we're reviewing, like, for instance, ADUs, and someone comes in with a modern design, and it's very clearly not that, we go back and we say, look, you gotta get it a lot closer than what we're looking at here right now,
And I
because
think,
it's not even on the same page.
yeah, I think also built into what qualifies as an ADU, when you check the boxes, has something to do with parking and so on. And you wouldn't be able to impose those conditions on a guest house unless you had some type of CUP to attach.
Oh, that's a good point. The guest house would still have to provide parking.
No, because
No?
you don't know.
If you had a
There isn't a
CUP,
parking requirement on guest houses?
I don't
do we
think
know that?
so.
Where do we
'Cause
find
it's,
that?
it's just like an additional room on your, I
Okay.
don't believe that guest houses
you
trigger
think it's like an
parking.
additional room?
That's how, yeah, it's like an additional room.
Where do you find that? I mean,
I'm looking it up.
Well, I
okay,
guess that's the question. Do we
Okay, so
feel,
it's
do we feel like
10
it's an
1705.
additional room? Because I think it, more than an additional room, well, if it's a permanent employee, I mean, it's in the definition.
Oh,
If it's a
interesting.
permanent employee, then they have,
So a guest house requires a minimum parcel size of 20,000 square feet.
yeah.
Maximum floor area of the guest house shall not exceed 640 square feet.
oh, it's small. Okay.
Guest houses are constructed within 300 feet from an existing sewer line. Oh, interesting. Guest houses shall not be allowed on parcels where second units are currently located. Oh, that was, okay, so you want to hear something kind of funny? You build a guest house first,
Yeah,
and
then
do
you
the
can build an
It's
ADU.
just yeah.
That seems like it should just be whatever the law can handle. I mean, if the law can handle both, then I suppose it's fine. Or it's a question.
Street sides, no design.
That would
That's
be
how
my
yours-
take.
that's how you're
If the
feeling.
property can handle it, setbacks, lot coverage, it's just an accessory building
Because
at this point.
20,000 square feet seems kind of interesting.
and it said it can only be 650 square feet. The
Yeah,
guest house.
I think it's 640.
I don't know, unless,
Pretty
640.
Yeah.
where are you
Yeah.
finding it, Lucas?
It's, so this is 10-2.1705 guest houses.
So you're looking at larger properties, a relatively small building,
Almost half an acre. I mean,
It's,
I think those should be permitted by right. Because especially the way that state law is forcing us, it just seems like there's no reason for the CUP, in my mind.
what do you guys think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I'd want to maybe just like double check it a bit, but it's,
Yeah.
oh,
yes.
State
by
your
all
name,
means.
please.
But you have to give your name and introduce yourself.
The reason for the CUP was because you have this great little guest house with a full bathroom, and who's to say they throw the little kitchen in, and now you have 2 ADUs and they're not allowed. That's why it was the controlling factor for converting it to an ADU anyway.
Okay, so that's actually a good point. Go ahead.
What,
That was my point, I guess, earlier, is that, that we didn't want, in the past, we didn't want those converted to a second unit.
Here's okay, so there's pros. Let me just mention one potential con. And this is something that I'm sure is happening even today. It's where we have code compliance going out, and we have whistleblowers making us aware of illegal construction that's taking place. There's a chance that there could be a guest house being built that doesn't have the kitchen, and then they put the ADU in, and then they get the final for the ADU, and then they have, on a Sunday, they have somebody come out and put a kitchen in, right? Obviously, that requires utilities and stuff like that to be addressed.
there's also, a kitchenette. I mean, the definition of a kitchen, I mean, what is actually
cooking
considered?
appliance and
Okay, but I mean, I can see a little hot pot and
yeah.
maybe a half a refrigerator and a sink, and you
Well, I
could
think,
do it.
I guess the question that we need to ask is like, I mean, we could say, well, forget about the guest house at that point. You're right. I mean, assuming the worst, right? Then are we just okay with saying that there should be 2, ADUs on a property in a sense, Because if you do that, then at least they require the parking and the other things. So what's the goal, what's the goal of a guest house?
So there's a couple of things to just think about when you're looking at kind of the density proportions for like residential or even VMU. And that is this: the housing element already identifies the interest in maintaining ADUs into the future.
Mm-hmm.
It also identifies a program that talks about expanding that. Meaning, if we start seeing numbers dip, what's the other approach the city is going to take over the next 8 years? Because 2021 to 2029 is what we're looking at for this housing element cycle. What has happened recently is we have tiny houses that have come online, and we have a growing interest with tiny houses that are being sited on property.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's the only real big thing that they're having to deal with.
That's a pun. The only big thing.
That's true. The issue that keeps coming up for these tiny houses is the upfront cost for connections to sewer and water. That's what we keep finding over and over and over again. Even though the impact on these very small, these things can't be larger than 499 square feet, so they're very small. We're talking 640 here, and this is small. ADUs can be up to 1,200 square feet. It's basically another small house on the property, right?
Exactly.
So,
That's what I mean.
yeah.
If you build a guest house from scratch and you put in a bathroom, do you pay the $16,000 or $17,000 connection fee to the sewer, or do you just hook it into your house and,
For ADUs?
no,
Hook
for
it
a
into your
guest
house.
house?
Either one.
Oh,
Either
for
way.
a guest house, I think you have the option of either connecting to existing. I don't think you necessarily, guest houses don't have that same litmus test, I think, from a sanitation standpoint. ADUs do. I think they have a rule that talks about whether it's attached or detached.
This just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It's always asking, the left hand's always asking what the right hand's doing and some of these things. And a lot of times it's, hey, this is what's going on and these are the regulations that are actually happening.
Okay, but a toilet in a guest house, you can just hook up to the house, but a
For a guest
toilet in
house,
an
I don't-
ADU, you pay the fee?
I don't think that there's, yeah,
That's,
For a guest house, you can just
Insane.
use your same sewer line,
Yeah.
same water. You don't need a separate meter.
Would you,
I think we have to leave the CUP in place.
so here's the thing, I think we probably
I don't
could
have a
do-
separate meter,
For what, your ADU?
and it just connects to the sewer line. Have to deal with something with the
Oh, you have
Sanitary
to pay the connection
district.
fee, like a,
minor one, yeah, but it's not. So it seems to be related to, it was like scale and, number of
So
fixtures.
did you build an ADU recently?
Not build, it was a conversion.
Oh, a compliance unit.
It was a garage.
Okay, that's still an ADU. Even though it's converted, it's still, you're
Mhm.
still turning it into an ADU.
That's right.
So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways you can do it, either attached or detached.
Yeah.
So that one's attached. Yeah, it's just it's a conversion.
Detached.
Oh, it's a detached garage.
Mhm.
Oh,
So there was everything new had to go to it.
right. Okay.
It doesn't have its own meter.
So you worked within the framework of a two-car garage?
One,
Within a one-car garage, so less than 400 square feet?
about
Like
that,
three.
yeah.
Didn't you say ADUs had to be 620?
No, a guest house.
Yeah,
this can be smaller.
yeah, there's no minimum size.
Oh, okay.
Well, there
It's
might
the
be in,
max.
there might be in building code, but it's relatively small. And you could get away with a one-car garage and still make it.
I'm just saying that on the plumbing side, it doesn't seem, it's not a huge thing.
Well,
I guess-
there's a hookup fee. I mean, there
Yeah,
definitely
there's a hookup
is a
fee.
sanitary hookup fee.
Yeah, I've seen the real cost to that. I
Yeah.
mean, residents have brought that forward, which is one of the concerns with the tiny houses and citing those.
Yeah.
How much what is that fee
It
approximately?
ranges. I've seen it as low as $8,000. I've seen it as high as $16,000.
Okay,
And 16 is more typical, 1,000.
right, that's what I had seen. So you're saying it was minor, so you didn't need to pay a
We're putting-
$16,000 fee?
We're putting them on notice.
don't know if this
so
should
you're
all go
gonna
on
get a
record.
bill.
Maybe their math wasn't right.
No, but I think, I'm just, I guess, like, the big thing we're talking about is like working from the assumption that it is not unlikely that someone or a future owner of a house that has a guest house would say, well, yeah, how about I just throw a hot plate or in like a whatever, and someone's like basically living here full time.
A micro, a hot plate, coffee
Whatever.
pot.
Just like if we kind of work from the assumption that like a guest room is one thing, but a separate structure where someone can spend time is another thing. It's like kind of what do we want to see? We know that the state allows for the ADU and the junior ADU. So there's at least two other things potentially, depending on lot size and all this, that we can get. And so how does the guest house, which has nothing to do with the state and is just a local decision, how does that play into what we'd want to see?
Oh, it gets down to the pros and cons. I think that's what it really boils down to. Is the CUP something this community still wants to continue doing moving forward? This body's having that conversation right now.
Right.
Once we actually notice it and start really having that conversation with a resolution, with a draft ordinance that's attached to it that gets forwarded to council, and it's noticed to the paper, and being that it's a citywide thing, we wouldn't actually notice the residents individually. It would
Yeah.
just be in the paper. So it's an interesting conversation because it's something that's been in the books for a long time, and I've kind of wondered it myself in terms of why we do the CUP. I see the pros and cons to it, and it's just a community decision at that point. Does it make sense to continue doing it, knowing the path that we're going down regarding these other accessory structures
Yeah.
that are being habitated?
The guest house is a separate structure, right?
I mean, it identifies the square footage, but it doesn't say whether it has to be attached or detached. So it could be both.
Could be either, okay.
I mean, either or, obviously.
Yeah, well, I guess
Would
the
it?
benefit is if you have a large property and you already have a guest house or a second dwelling unit and you have a junior ADU,
No, it's located within an accessory structure.
Is that what it's saying?
Yes.
Say it again.
It's living quarters within an accessory structure, so that's not attached. That's accessory to the main structure.
A guest house.
A guest house, sorry, definition of
Yeah,
a guest house,
yeah.
yeah. I'm just saying it's not an attachment, it's a separate.
So the benefit really is to any neighbors that want to ensure that the property isn't intensified beyond what's allowed for living units.
Yeah.
You know, so
How many,
I have a big property, I have a guest, or I have an ADU, I have a junior ADU, and now I want to put in a guest house.
Right.
And so if the CUP is still attached to the guest house, you can do a deed restriction so it doesn't turn into a third living unit.
Yeah, the only way that we would really know whether or not they've done that is we'd have to have a whistleblower. We're not gonna go out and
look for it.
Right.
check in on them.
I guess
But-
my point is they can do it anyway. I mean, it's still, the guest house is still only supposed to be a guest house. And so the whistleblower can do it whether it's permitted by right or a CUP.
Are we okay with, RO4 is very low density? Like, are we okay with that? Like, I mean, maybe it's like, are we saying to change this to P?
Oh,
Right.
just on the bigger lots.
Well, maybe, or the opposite. I guess it's like kind of a question. I know it's a bigger lot, so obviously it can handle more stuff, but it's also supposed to be the low density.
Right.
Like, is it better to put it in a higher density zone? Is it better to have it as of right in a lower density zone where there's more space for it and it kind of can be, tucked away or hidden more or not? Should each of those be kind of approached the same way, or does CUP still make sense for some of them?
Are you applying the urbanist approach or are you applying the rural?
I mean, I'm
discussion
kind of
approach.
leaving it up
That's-
for a discussion.
That is the discussion, because
That is the discussion, yeah.
Are you
initially
looking,
looking at it, it seemed to be the obvious choice. If you're gonna peel back the layer of regulation, it would be in the RO4.
Right.
But then you also look at the slippery slope of the density is meant to be and intended to be
Right.
low and should remain
Right.
low, right? So then, are the other zones which are residential and are meant to handle more density the real intended target?
Right. Which, I mean, I could see that, because I could see there being advantages to, for walkability, livability of even a small town like Ojai, having more density towards the center. Is it potentially a positive thing? I mean, that's obviously a big discussion point, but possibly. I mean, the advantages, I guess, of it in the RO4 zone or whatever is it, I think that there's a lot of forms of, shared living situations or like more kind of communal situations that people who come to Ojai are excited about and interested in and are positive for what Ojai is and how it exists. So that's an argument, for it to make sense in those spaces, is to give more opportunity for those to be, we're not talking about, it's like, obviously you never know, it's about the people, but more of a shared, group situation than, a bunch of rental units.
are you looking for a resolution on this tonight, or are you just looking to stir the pot a little bit, get some discussion? Where are you? What
Let me
is your
remind-
expectation here?
Let me remind the commission of the recommendation. Review and discuss sections of Title 10 located within the Ojai Municipal Code and provide feedback. And it says, and I quote, review, discuss, feedback only. So if there's no resolution and you want to continue, or you want to kick the can down the road, I'm totally open to those discussion pieces. If there's a little bit more research on one or two of these items, absolutely. But I will caution that if we start looking at 3 or 4 of these items, I will absolutely need one of you to be assigned to helping with this.
Mm-hmm.
So just know that the asks may have a
They're
repercussion.
looking at me.
Suddenly, it's very quiet up here.
Well, the nice thing is so you do have one commissioner who's not here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
You could easily start assigning certain activities to that individual.
That's right. If you're not,
And we still need someone else.
Yeah, I think it would make sense to have, depending on the number of deeper dives that you're wanting to do, it may make sense to have two.
Yeah. For this type of thing, I mean, obviously then we'd look at it and then it would come before and there'd be opportunity for the community to speak on it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's a policy issue, because if you really do weigh the pros and the cons, and maybe when we do things like this, making the switch, if we do,
Right.
or recommend it, is put the pros and cons out there.
Next to each other, yeah.
yes,
Which would be
exactly.
a good exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Agreed.
So that's to say that we should look at guest houses. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And-
we've got
and crop
crop production
production.
and animal
Crop
keeping and guest houses, and we're on the first page
Mobile home.
of 63, just
Your
so that
question-
the audience knows.
I don't want to give up on your question, because I sort of had the same one about the mobile home outside of a park.
Yeah, I just didn't understand why
But I
that
think-
would be permitted in R1 and nowhere else. So I think we should discuss that.
That's
Commissioner
also a
Rice-Schmidt
state law
was-
issue. That's a state law issue,
Mm.
because we
Where
have
do
to
you-
allow them in a residential zone.
Yeah, I think there actually is new state law that's may have actually
Really?
come on actually longer than a
So
few
we were
years
doing
ago.
the basic minimum,
Minimum. And it's
Uh,
in the R1,
Yeah.
which
Single family.
is-
So that means
4 units.
they can come in, roll it, and they can set it down in the
Right.
R1 zone without a permanent foundation. I mean, it still has to pass the state.
It's supposed to apply as a mobile home,
Yes.
which
Yeah,
which
there's
the
HUD,
definition
there's HUD standards when you're
is
looking
there.
at a mobile home.
8 feet
versus-
wide, 40 feet.
Is it different from a recreational vehicle that?
It is.
That,
It is.
That's what it says.
that's on wheels, that
That's
just
what it's-
drives into a vacant part of a parcel and is there sometimes?
Sure, let's read it.
Like, I believe it can stay on its chassis, it just has to be secured a certain way.
It has to be permanently
Yeah, I think
connected
there was
to its chassis.
was there a definition for that one? I
Yeah,
think
it's
there was,
definition.
right?
Mobile home. A trailer transportable in one or more sections that is certified under the National Manufacturer Housing Construction and Safety Standards Act, which is 8 feet or more in width, 40 feet or more in length, for a total of 320 square feet, and is built on a permanent chassis with or without a permanent foundation, and not including recreational vehicle, commercial coach, or factory-built housing.
That's where I got lost.
A mobile home on a permanent foundation is included, and not including, without a permanent foundation, and not including recreational vehicle, commercial coach.
So that means if it's on a permanent
I think-
foundation, it can go in any residential zone because it is considered residential. So
Well,
that's why we
I-
have,
It's a trailer, I think that's why, so it can't be a recreational vehicle. It's something you can pull, but it
Right.
can't be a mobile home that that you drive, a motorhome.
Yeah,
Okay.
recreation.
right,
You have to be able to pull it.
right.
Trailer
Drop it.
versus.
Pull and drop.
On the,
Right.
but keep going on the definition.
A mobile home on a permanent foundation is included, but that's a mobile home. Oh, under the single-family residential.
Yeah,
So it's a single-family dwelling if it's on a foundation.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
that's
my
your
point.
But it's still a trailer. Just to answer I think that Judy's question was,
Right.
what about a recreational vehicle? And no, that does not count under this.
They can't.
And we do
pull
have
in
those throughout
with a-
town.
With a motorized vehicle, but they can drop. They can pull a trailer in and drop it.
And
on a-
occupy it. Yeah.
Again, these don't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, I think it's like, it's like the Airstream is the kind of classic example, I guess, You just, I mean, I guess it's funny, like, once again, why is it chosen to be in the R1? might be the question. Because it actually seems like it would be better on a different
It-
one.
I've been trying to.
Well, the
figure
R
out
one's
which
like
one
gonna
you-
be, it's gonna be in the driveway, right?
Not necessarily. I'm thinking of one that's on a vacant lot. I mean, on a big lot.
In the
Can
R1?
Can it be on a
No, it still
vacant?
has to meet setbacks, and it still needs, it has to meet all the setbacks, all the zoning standards. It's
Right.
just, it's a building code issue more than anything else. So, I mean, we have these all
Right.
sprinkled through town.
Right.
There's one on El Paseo, there's two on El Paseo.
Mm-hmm.
There's one on Oak. There's,
Okay, so,
On Oak?
I believe it's Oak.
Okay.
so if you have to have it in one of the zones, which zone would we ideally want it in?
I mean,
Well, hold on, let's first start with maybe there's a state regulation that doesn't even give us that option.
right.
So then we're changing
Thought
it
we
based,
said there
based
was
on
a
what
state
the
law.
state regulation, the state law
That's
is.
something to research, yeah.
Yep.
But I think it's worth looking at it, because it seems like,
That could be updated. I mean,
Yeah.
the state law might be updated as well.
Yeah.
it means that it's on a single family lot, you could just have an Airstream with nothing else on it. On an R1 lot,
Well,
which
it
is a
has
single
to-
family.
I don't know that the
No.
Airstream, that
doesn't
sounds
fit
like
the
a
definition.
trailer. Yeah.
It's not 40 feet long.
Right, that's not the definition. That's a
That's a
regular
trailer.
recreational trailer. That's not a mobile home.
It has, yeah, I guess we have to look into the standards of
That's
1970.
in the research column.
Yeah, I mean, we can't,
lot
I
on
don't think we
page
can
one.
make a lot of these changes in a void without understanding all the,
All the ins and outs,
All of
Yeah.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
That one needs a list of,
Pros and cons again?
Questions? Yeah.
well, yeah,
defi-
what the state law
definitions.
is.
I think the
state
first
law
thing is-
definitions,
is-
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
What's required? Let's,
The litmus test of state law regarding it. Because I have a feeling HUD has something to say about this, and I have a feeling there's
Sure.
government code that does as well.
Yeah.
So,
and you could, there's, lots to be said, I'm sure.
do you guys want to talk about mobile home parks?
No.
No, no? Okay, we can move on to the next one.
I
Do we
don't.
have space in
They're
the city of
CUPs.
Ojai?
They're CUPs.
They're CUPs.
There's
They're all
CUPs, but the
CUPs.
reality is
The
that
reality, we don't have any, do we?
there's a size limitation in terms of the minimum, and I was looking at our zoning code, and I can't think of a property that would actually qualify.
So,
So it's effectively requiring a CUP for a site that wouldn't, that does
That's
not
not gonna
exist at this
happen.
point. So,
Multifamily R2.
yeah, moving down the list, multifamily, residential.
There's so few R3 lots in the city.
There's only a handful. Well,
There-
pause that conversation because I have a feeling that with some of the rules that have come that are
Mhm.
coming down the pipeline that have just hit the road, I'm trying to understand. There may be an action item coming before this body to address some of those rules, and I'm just sorting through them right now. So, your R3 may end up growing as one of the solutions that I'm thinking about. So just
There's a
know
good
that-
amount of R2, so,
Yeah.
you know. Okay. Residential accessory uses and structures.
So across the board, in the R's, single-family dwelling as a permitted use across the board. Makes sense, right? Yeah. Telecommunication facilities, you can't really touch that, so.
Yeah,
There's federal law, and then it sprinkles down to state law, and we actually have specific shot clock requirements, so I wouldn't touch it.
It's the tree cell tower.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, design stuff. We've been lucky enough at this point, when those come forward, they just tend to be either on roofs, so they're completely shielded. So.
Okay.
We did have a freestanding one that was proposed, I want to say 2014, 2015, which was highly contentious.
Well, we do have a tree in town.
Yeah, it's on state property though. It's, yeah,
It came before the planning commission.
years ago, yeah. But you know what's funny is that I don't ever hear anybody talking about it.
I don't think people notice it.
Yeah, it's hidden amongst other trees, so it kind of works.
It works, yeah.
Okay, can we go to the next
Commercial.
commercial? Yes. Okay. All right, so we're looking at table 2-4. And remember what I said in the beginning, I did the litmus test between the uses that are identified within the use chart and whether or not they match up or have some sort of correlating definition within the definition section. And guess what? The first three that are identified here do not have a definition that's identified within our definition section.
Agriculture and
Agricultural
clothing and
processing,
cosmetics.
vegetable packaging and shipping, it's
mhm,
not defined.
not defined.
But to be fair, I've yet to have a question on that one.
Yeah.
That's not to say it couldn't happen in the future. Clothing and fabric production, not identified as a definition. Cosmetic and pharmaceuticals, not identified as a definition.
The first one kind of goes to where we started this conversation, which is that we have agricultural facilities. Is it possible that those actions are happening in an, I guess it's the next section, in the
In this, you're talking about
AG?
the AG section? Yeah, so that's the one that we talk about next. There is, I think it's actually the first one. Is it the same one?
No, it's not.
So it starts, so the special purpose starts with animal keeping and then it jumps into crop production and horticulture, which does have a definition. Sorry, I'm
Anyways,
jumping around here.
I'm jumping around. We'll come back, but I think it's the fact that it's not on that list is kind of to your point. Maybe it's later on.
Yeah.
I don't think it is, but yeah, like I don't see it. So, anyways,
Well, what I'm, so what I'm getting at is it's kind of the setting the table piece. It might actually make sense in this case to put together some sort of a definition for something like an agricultural processing and vegetable packaging and shipping.
mm-hmm.
The 7 years that I've been here, I haven't had that question come up, but that's not to say that it won't happen tomorrow. You know, as soon as I get in the office at 8:05, right?
Yeah, it's about being prepared.
Exactly.
That's
It's
what
not necessarily
planning.
for
That's what
me.
planning is.
That's what planning is. We plan.
Do other cities have those definitions already prepackaged for you?
So that would be an excellent research piece to look into. And I wouldn't look any further than Oxnard or Ventura County, Camarillo. Maybe not necessarily far east as like Thousand Oaks or Simi Valley, but areas like that for sure, they've already got agriculture living within. So they have to have something that we can at least start with.
Yeah, Ventura might have some.
Yeah.
Page is turning.
I mean,
Any other conversation?
Do we have an MPD zone anywhere?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, that area is
Where?
the southern tip. I think it's the southern tip.
Bryant Circle.
Yeah, of the yeah.
Because right now it shows as M1.
Yeah.
It got fixed, but the map didn't get fixed. But the
Got
zoning
it.
did.
Well, then that tells me so it was fixed after the map.
After
Okay.
2008.
Yes.
Okay. So
We need an updated
can
map.
can I just, something that's been bugging me for the last 7 years, but I haven't had the direction to do it. I know we're having discussion tonight, and there's not supposed to be any direction. But in a very future meeting, I think you're going to see an updated zoning map.
I don't think, I mean, that doesn't need direction.
No,
that
it
was
doesn't,
part
but
of
I'm
the
just,
Update. I mean, it should have been updated immediately.
yeah.
You know, if the code changed, saying that this area had changed, it's just an administrative mapping issue.
It requires GIS, which we do not have.
Right.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem.
So, I mean, that, you could pay somebody an hour to get that done.
True. Yeah.
I don't think it
it's-
needs our permission. It's already been approved. It's administrative.
Yeah, it's an administrative piece. That's true. To that point. Yeah, so just know that that's something that's been bugging me for the last 7 years.
Noted.
Yeah.
Problem handled.
Problem solved.
No. The VMU.
Yeah, I was noticing on the map, there is no MPD listed on the zoning classifications on the map itself.
Yeah, that's what they're
Yeah.
saying. Yeah. Well, I guess I have to kind of go back and forth. I guess my only questions would be about, on this first section would be, I mean, I get it. But printing and publishing and furniture.
Oh, one of the questions I had was the 500-foot rule,
Right.
because most of, all of our M1 is within 500 feet of residential, or quite close.
Not all.
It's not all, but, I mean, a lot of it is.
It is an
And-
interesting, when we do the exercise, it's very interesting because what it does is it pushes any of those uses that are supposed to be outside of that 500 foot within tenant spaces that are at the edge or closer to the Bryant Circle area and not necessarily
Towards the edges.
towards the edges, yeah. So it creates this very,
Interior.
yeah, it's been a weird exercise. We've done it a couple of times in that area. It's just,
Is it because those might have more like toxins or noise? Is that the assumption?
I'm not sure why the 500 foot was put in there.
That's
Sherry,
what
do you
I
wanna-
wanted to talk about, because I know for sure we've got some food production, like we have the granola girl, you know, Lark Ellen Farms. That doesn't smell.
Mhm.
That it does, you know, it's really low impact.
Yeah.
You know, so
Well, that's what I'm thinking about, like printing and publishing. Like, what is
yeah,
that?
I mean, so how, you know, we should be allowing things like that, businesses like that, to come into the M1. We want that kind of business.
Yeah.
So they possibly can't go in to all of those that back up to Buckboard,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and Settle Mountain properties. I don't know. And there's a lot of businesses there because there's a lot of small R&D
Yeah. Well, and this might
units.
be very unpopular, I think, to say, but I'm just also kind of curious about it all in its relationship to the VMU, which, you know, has the potential for like live, work, and, you know, light things like, you know, a workshop and a residence,
Mm-hmm.
or a printing, you know, a bookmaker in a residence, let's say, or some of these things that actually are on the three
Yeah, I agree with that.
might
Yeah, might be appropriate.
be appropriate and allow for, you know, an interesting kind of diversity and, like, because that's like live work is a way of obviously, you know, affording to do it.
Yeah, it
There's, like,
seems like the
financial-
VMU column should have CUPs.
At least, yeah,
least
yeah.
Going all the way down.
Yeah, well, maybe not for like agricultural process, maybe though.
No, yeah,
I mean, like, maybe not for every single one,
right.
but definitely for some of them, it seems like there should be the opportunity to have the discussion.
Yeah. Like I could see a small clothier, you know,
Yeah.
someone who's
Right.
just lives there, does
Weaves.
specialty. Yeah. I mean, just makes, I don't know, a gown for the,
Yeah,
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 no,
there's-
whatever.
yeah.
You know,
Weaves
just,
Weaves
That's
is
fairly
strong.
low impact.
yeah.
I mean, so in the VMU, there are uses where there's a mom and pop that does ceramics, right?
Right.
And that one is classified as manufacturing, right? So,
Well, I think VMU specifically allows, I think I noticed that ceramics and pottery, but not, pottery shops and sales, but maybe not manufacturing. That's what it is. Pottery shops and sales. Typically,
Oh,
pottery
like when does it
shops-
start to get, when
But
do we
it's-
start to see it getting activated?
yeah.
Yeah, in
Right, right,
retail.
right,
So
right,
it's
right.
allowed, pottery shops and sales is permitted, but the manufacturing of that is not permitted, which is,
Right, it's more about like a shop,
yeah.
not a,
A store.
which is fine, but it seems like there's an argument to be made for the actual thing to be made.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why
That
is,
would be CUP,
Could be a
Ish.
CUP, yeah.
CUP zone.
Sure.
why is a theater or auditorium not permitted in C1? I mean, it's kind of where I would expect it to be, and is,
So you want the pros and the cons to that?
yes,
Okay, so I'll give a couple of them.
okay.
So when you don't allow a theater or production to go in, the one that's there becomes the only one. So it basically reduces competition. The pro to that, or the con to that, is when you don't allow competition, you basically create a pedestal for that particular use. So it's a slippery slope. That's why I've seen it. Yeah, the theater that we have, the one theater that we have here, which is a historic theater that's been around, and at least in the county, I think it's the oldest, if not in state.
So it's legal
Out
non-conforming,
on,
Yes.
but
but
it's been out
for-
of business for over a year, so we should have shut it down.
No, they were still doing, I know, yeah, you're going into the 6-month
where are
piece.
you, what?
The reality is that for that one, I can't talk about it anymore. She's gonna get mad at me.
Oh, okay.
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 I was
Carrie-
teasing, by the way.
The
That's the
attorney
last
is-
thing I'd want to do.
Yep. Yep. So
It
let's stay
seems
on
like there would
task.
be space
I
out,
should,
out on East Ojai Avenue.
Say that again?
Wouldn't there be space for a theater or an auditorium in C1 out on
there's all
East?
kind of space for different types of uses out there. The most obvious one would be a bowling alley.
Okay.
But yeah, there,
It
for
is a good
sure, there
question.
could be an opportunity out there.
So I don't think that should be not permitted.
And the community center?
Yeah, look, if this body is interested in turning what page is that on, by the way?
10.
We're on 10 of 63,
Okay.
about the middle of the
All right.
page.
Permitted or CUP?
For theater, I would say permitted.
Okay, so it's gonna require a design
Or-
review regardless, so you're gonna have conditions. It'll be before this body regardless,
Yeah,
as a C1.
that makes sense.
And
I
the community center, the same?
I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't want do you feel like it's taken away from commercial? Is that the concern?
So here's a yes to the theater, because what is the theater doing? It's generating sales tax. Community center, it's taking away an opportunity for sales tax generator. I don't think community centers, through their memberships, create much in terms of retail, unless you're selling a lot of T-shirts or a lot of memorabilia through a community center.
Is that all that's taxable?
Well, the C1 that's the sales tax generator piece. So you've always
Sales
got to be,
tax.
that's the
Yeah.
thing that always is discussed
Okay.
first.
All right. Fine.
It's the whole reason why when there was a conversation at one point about, and this was the general plan effort, about bringing on residential into the C1, it was discussed in terms of being considered, and we had a workshop for it. But then when we actually looked at what that meant, we were potentially losing a significant amount of property that's sales tax generator. We've already got a lot of area that's already allowing for multifamily. So,
That's where the VMU is interesting.
Yep.
we'll get to, you know, that one. Yeah, okay. Oh, I guess I was wondering that.
Why would auto sales need a CUP, but not auto parts sales? Space?
Auto sales, where are you at here? Auto parts sales, okay, so you're on page 11 of 63. Auto parts sales and auto sales. So there's one, rental, new vehicles.
Well, auto parts sales, that's like.
Smaller.
That's smaller. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just regular
So is it
retail.
just a size
Auto
issue?
sales is a whole,
Yeah. The CUP, you want to help to regulate, because there's going to be the primary and then there's going to be a bunch of little accessories likely attached to that. I mean, look no further than what was in Ojai for the longest time along West Ojai on the south
Sure.
side, right? So,
we
and we're
just,
still sorting through what that building's going to look like in the future in terms of its uses.
to go back to above, just for the VMU and single-family dwelling. That's just kind of, I mean, it's confused me because we've talked about it before, Lucas, and you've explained that, well, once it becomes a single-family dwelling, it takes on that characteristic, and therefore it's like very hard to kind of do anything related to what the VMU outlines after that moment in a, you know, city where lots is I mean, just like, if we want VMU, we should have VMU. If we want single family, let's have single family. Like, it feels like it's like not really a useful, I mean, I can see how it's useful, but it's like, it's not quite doing maybe what it's doing, or it's like letting us be a little lazy maybe in how we're thinking about the map.
Your point on laziness is probably on cue. It is interesting because that was the first project that I remember coming forward as a VMU discussion piece. I was like, oh, well, what do we got going on in our VMU? Because it's mixed use. And then I saw that single family is an allowed use, and I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Just as looking at it from an urban planning standpoint, it doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
If you're looking at VMU, you're looking at it as a transitional period, not as a period to continue that use moving forward, but as a period by which that use will eventually just be eliminated by the years, by the properties changing hands and then being modified over time. Maybe it takes 50 years, right? I want to say this is the first city that I've seen, that I've worked in, maybe not the first city I've seen, the first city I've worked in where single-family dwellings were permitted use within a mixed-use designated area.
Right.
So, you're on point.
I mean, if it wants to be there in some way, I feel like maybe it should be more of like a CUP or something, but it feels counterproductive or intuitive.
Yeah, that would be the, like, splitting hairs between doing
Sure.
that and just saying it's not
No,
allowed. Because then by that point, you're creating a non-conforming status.
Right.
Which
Which there's gonna be plenty of it.
yeah, the non-conforming status, what I'm finding, even in, like, for instance, the C1 area on Montgomery,
Yeah.
it's created a bit of a headache for individuals trying to refinance and do improvements to the property.
Mm. Yeah, I guess it's like used in other, or I've seen it, it's like, feel like it's used to, this is fine for now, but then if you know, if things are gonna change.
Yeah, you
at
do a
large
CUP
rate.
in that fashion. I think you probably control it in a good way.
Yeah.
Where it takes some of the sting away from it being single family and starts introducing really kind of the mixed use component, which is really what's intended for the VMU
Yeah.
across the board.
That would be my
I mean,
proposal.
any urban planner that's looking at a mixed use component, regardless of its intent, is meant to be a transitional period. I mean, it's spelled out. Why would we allow a single family without
Yeah, I
having
think
some-
I think the market takes care of that, though. I mean, we have vacant commercial all over the place in commercial zones.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think for that neighborhood especially, which is mainly Matilaha, Aliso, Oak, between Blanche and, what is that,
Montgomery.
Montgomery?
Well, it's a little
There's
bit
stuff
below.
south of
It's south too.
Ojai Ave, right?
And,
That's north.
no, it's north of Ojai Avenue.
No,
And
yeah,
then
okay.
we have some south on,
Olive.
yeah, on Bald and in that neighborhood as well. But I don't know. I think the market takes care of it. Like when there's more demand for commercial and mixed use, you know, it changes over. We've seen it on Kenyatta and Matilaha. That was a single family house. It was designed in VMU. And the building was designed to be, commercial, residential split. It was sold, family took it over as a single family house, sold again, and then it became commercial. So I like the flexibility in that zone to have it commercial, residential, both. And it's starting to happen more. The one on Ventura and Matilaha we've seen a couple change of uses there. And it's starting to multiply, I think, a little bit, very, very slowly. But it's happening. But I think the market is taking care of it. If you can be successful with a commercial business there, it'll start happening. It'll start changing over. But I don't think you can force commercial to go in there knowing, we have empty commercial all over the place.
Right.
In
guess
our
I'm
commercial zones. It's just people, things are changing. We're buying things online, commercial spaces are.
Yeah, I guess I'm imagining that the idea to some degree with like a mixed use is that you're creating a residential and a commercial use on the same
Yeah, and
property
that's happening.
simultaneously.
That's happening in a couple of those areas.
Right.
I mean, so I don't know. I kind of like keeping it as is with allowing single family or letting it morph into a mixed use or commercial.
So if it's a residential use, if it's a single family residential use, well, it has a residential use no matter what. But if it's a single family residential use and they want to use it as commercial, then they have to make because it's codified
But
as a.
Just
so you know,
design review.
Yeah, it requires design review, so
Yeah.
it'll become before this body.
Even if they're just like, don't do anything and they just want to.
The change in the use
Yeah.
necessitates
Why is that?
the discussion.
Ah.
Yeah. Did you say why is that?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
Wouldn't the change of use, if they didn't make any changes, right, and they had,
That's what I mean.
that's a simple zone clearance, isn't it? If they're not making any.
Give the hypothetical example again.
So a hypothetical would be, there's a single-family residence, and they want to convert the inside. Nothing is different on the outside. They have enough parking, or they're close enough to parking where they're exempt. There's really no need to come to the Planning Commission. It's just a simple zone clearance.
I
Right?
actually think
'Cause it's
I think it
permitted.
requires a DRP.
For what? Because
And-
DRP is specifically limited to physical attributes.
Yeah, but the VMU has a specific category. Let me look it up. I'll
Okay.
read it for you, and then we can have that discussion. Hold on.
Okay. Because, if something is permitted by right, that's the whole point. It's permitted. And so you come in, if you meet all the criteria of that zone, it should be a simple zone clearance.
Well, that's what assumption was also, I think.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of asking. Well, and I ask it because, well, I don't know.
So, still within the vein of the VMU, I'm looking at whether or not there's qualifying. I can do this, right?
Yeah, please.
Applicability. 10/2/2003 talks about the following proposed projects that will be subject to design review by the commission. The first one speaks to single-family zones, and those single-family zones having a two-story component to it. The second one talks about all applications for construction or reconstruction of any building or structure requiring a conditional use permit, minor variance, plan development permit or variance. 3 is any construction, whether or not a building permit is required, which affects the exterior elevation of any existing building or structure other than single-family, single-story. 4 says a change in use of an existing commercial and industrial building which will require additional parking. 5 is any exterior alteration, whether or not a building permit is required, that modifies the structure, architectural details, or visual characteristics, such as paint, color, surface, texture, grading, paving, and the C1, BP, and VMU. Provided, however, that the foregoing provisions of this subsection shall not apply to routine maintenance of existing structures. So, okay, so I think 5 is what, because I'm not gonna read, there's a B, C, and D, but I think 5 is what we're,
Read it again?
But it's not changing anything.
yeah, let me read it
Yeah.
again. Yeah, I think you're onto something. Any exterior alteration, whether or not a building permit is required, that modifies the structure, architectural details, or visual characteristics such as paint, color, surface texture, grading and paving, or any other property located within the C1, BP, and VMU zones.
So, I mean, this is probably a moot point, because if you're gonna change it, if you're gonna convert a house into commercial, you're probably gonna change something. You're probably gonna change out a window or doors or whatever,
But let's say you didn't.
but let's say you didn't. I think it requires, even what you're reading, nothing triggers
Yeah.
design review.
I think
Because-
if you walk the fine line, I think you're right. Yeah.
But
I've-
I think that would be rare, but.
I
But
can't
I
think of an
think-
example because typically, there is some sort of exterior change, as minimal as it is. And this is written very intentional.
Yeah.
So that it does rise to the level of, either commission or at least director level,
I have a
not a zone clearance.
I'm remembering part of where this question came about for me, which was that when we were talking about, I think it was something else at one point. It was that if something is like next to a single family residential, because I think it was when we were talking about South Fulton maybe or something. It was like if
Oh, we were having the conversation,
like just about the
post-
regulations
post
around
our plan
noise, some regulations that might be next to a single family residential are therefore then at the restriction of the single family residential and not at the, even if it's in a commercial, or I mean, a manufacturing zone or something like that,
right.
but it's next to. So that's, I guess, one limiting thing with having the single family next to, it limits which I guess maybe goes back to the start, which is maybe why these just aren't on the list. Because if you can have a single family next to it, then as soon as you can't really, there's gonna be a lot of issues with trying to allow somebody to have anything of manufacturing style. So I guess it's like if we want that to feel like it's possible, then we might have to think about how the single family intermeshes with it. Because nothing to say it couldn't be a multifamily. I mean, like 2 living, mixed use. Am I going? Multifamily, yes,
Multifamily,
permitted.
yeah.
It's just whether, so I don't know. That's kind of, I guess this is this little like,
That was
Wheel I'm
the
on.
conversation you're remembering on South Fulton was to cover what had initially been discussed from a general plan update standpoint. And it was putting to bed kind of a larger conversation on whether or not to pursue changes in that area.
yeah, no, for sure. It brought up this other element that then, I think at the same time we were talking about the VMU for some reason, but it was like my first one.
VMU did come up, yeah.
So that's I guess my question is like, so we started by saying, oh, maybe we should have CUPs for some of these things for the VMU. But then when we get to the single family residential, we realize that, well, maybe it is still fine and that's part of this CUP. It's like, well, is this next to a single
I mean,
residential in the VMU that's
The good
permitted?
test you could use for VMU, and I think someone said this earlier, maybe not, maybe I was just thinking it, is maybe in the VMU, everything should be a CUP. Because if you
yeah,
do
that's
that,
what
did
I
you
was
say
saying,
that?
yeah.
Because if you do that, that's kind of applying the urbanist approach where you
Yeah.
have control, but then you also are like, it's not saying it's not allowed, it's saying
Right.
you've got to go through a process
Right.
and then vet it and
Right.
then just be held to those standards.
That's interesting.
Because I think you do raise a very fair point where that there's some inconsistencies potentially when you go to place them, put it into activation. If you inevitably can't do a VMU next to a single-family
Right.
home,
Then you're pushing
You've
the
just
VMU.
pushed 'em out.
You're making it smaller, smaller,
yeah,
smaller.
and that might have been an oversight, or maybe we're not interpreting it accurately.
No, I think we're on point here. It's just, I think we're having a
Or,
deeper
or
conversation.
isn't a single-family residence in a VMU accepting the,
Maybe that's what we say.
I think that's what's going on. I mean, you're not going to buy a single-family residence in a VMU if you're worried about the commercial store next door.
Mhm.
Well, I guess that would have to sort of be outlined somewhere to a degree. That there's something different about a single family in a VMU, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to
Context
redefine
of-
it.
Yeah, if we're comparing the context of just VMU in general versus the stuff on Fulton, South Fulton is more industrial in terms of
Yeah.
how that operates.
Yeah.
And then potentially is a negative influence if we were to turn that around and turn it into something that was more residential, because residential now has specific, that's kind of the context
That's
that
what
we're
I'm saying.
talking about. There's specific holdings for single family versus what the industrial intentions are.
That you have, I mean, I think that needs to be addressed.
Well, if you look in the definitions of VMU and single-family in the land use element and also zoning ordinance in the, I don't have it in front of me, but it's, the intro has what the character of each zone is.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so it does talk about VMU being mixed and, more lively and.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Could we, are you done with this one? Or do you
What are we
need further
talking about?
discussion?
Are we talking about the multifamily?
Can we move on?
It's to say that it would be interesting to consider VMU as CUP.
CUP, right.
Across the
I
board?
think that,
We'd have to add
Well, I
something
mean-
on the single-family home in order for them to be so close, right? Some type of
Well,
restriction where they.
no, maybe the CUP takes care of that.
The
though.
CUP.
No. I'm
Okay.
going to add that to the list, but I just want you to know that we are on a list of 2, 3, 4.
It's better to make a bigger list and then edit if you have to,
Yes.
Lucas.
That's true.
that's true. We don't want to say, why didn't we think of? Could you look at page 12?
Thank
I
you for
am-
your patience, Judy.
Page,
And for the record, I wouldn't say CUP all the way down the line. I mean, there's definitely
Some
things on
things
this
where
list
we
that you
shouldn't.
should not have
I
in
agree,
VMU.
yeah. But maybe everything that's already either a P or a CUP would be a CUP, and then there maybe are some things that might want
Yeah,
to be
which ones
considered.
rise to CUP?
Right.
Which ones that are identified as not permitted rise to CUP?
Yeah.
Or remain where they are currently
Yeah.
today?
Yeah, but there's some things, yeah, because like an art gallery should definitely be a P, permitted, right? And the only reason why we would ever see an art gallery is if they change the outside of the building.
Yeah.
Which,
Because there's,
Yeah.
it's a perfect fit.
well, and think
Yeah.
about
So
the
we need a
culture
CUP.
of
But we would see it
Ojai.
anyways.
Yeah, just think about the culture of Ojai. I mean, we are art. Why would we create a restriction to something that we want to embrace? That
Right.
doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of these, I think, still should remain Ps,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's design review only.
Which is actually a good point. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you talking about the art piece takes me back to making sure that the changes that we're having the kind of initial discussion on, we've got to vet that with the general plan to ensure that each of those elements, and more specifically the land use element, has specific ties, so we're not necessarily going against the grain, if that makes sense. And we'll have to do that regardless,
Mm-hmm.
as we kind of dive into this deeper.
Okay, page 12. Moving right along. I am looking at the top section in the M1 category. It's permitting gun shops and meat markets and not permitting a pet store or garden supply. I'm just wondering why those decisions would be reasonable.
Okay, so you're talking about pet store,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think pet stores, you want to keep them into, you know,
In the
retail.
commercial?
Yeah, in the commercial zone, you know, like by Vons, there's one, and Wachters. But
I don't know,
I can't imagine
nursery?
having a gun shop next to, well, I guess I could. Like the, I don't know if Ace Hardware ever carried guns.
Well,
at
yeah, they're
any
in the
point.
C. It's
Oh.
the C1 as well. It's just
Yeah.
also allowed in the M1.
Oh, right,
It-
there
we-
you go.
we-
Allowed in
Okay,
both.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
want to protect our M1
Right. I think
zones
that's what you're asking.
for light industrial, and I don't see a gun shop or a meat market as qualifying for that.
Okay, so but just so you know, from an M1 standpoint, that tends to be the area where your things that are going to have some smells and some noises that aren't as
Right. Desirable.
desirable. Yeah, meat markets are definitely one of those.
But it's on the C. It's on the C1 as well.
Yeah,
So I think it is kind of what.
We want to save those for industrial
Well, what if I mean?
possibilities. We have so little land
But what if there's a
available for industry in this town that to let a
what if
meat
there's
market or a gun shop go in doesn't make sense, or a pottery shop or sales or a restaurant.
But I think I think if you there might be like I don't know how you look at it. If you're allowed to, let's say, have your food and beverage product manufacturing in the M1, you're a small company, you want to have like direct sales from that same location. That might be why some of those things are like, I don't know how we describe that in here, but that would be the place that would make sense to me. I think you're right. I think we want to make sure that it would be like attached to some sort of manufacturing.
I would want pottery shops, restaurants removed.
But a
Well-
pottery shop might be making, it might be manufacturing
It
large
says
scale.
shops and sales. It
Right,
doesn't
right,
really
but
say
it might be the
manufacturing.
front of house of a big pottery manufacturing facility in the back
Yeah.
that you go to. I mean, I've been to, bought smoked fish from a fish factory, and you go
And
through
I
and
think
you go
it
do
should
that.
say that.
Maybe that's
And I think cafes where people work are good. It's a good idea. So with that,
In conjunction with,
Well, that you're saying that a freestanding cafe is like someone wants to be able to get lunch in Bryan Circle.
oh,
And not have to go all the way
Can you pull up a
downtown.
truck? Yes. Really.
or walking distance.
yeah.
There is something to be said about that. And in larger cities, you do see this folded in 100% because you will have that opportunity. Our area, I agree with you that it is a sacred area and that it needs to be treated that way. And certainly we need to look at it with the highest of litmus tests.
So I would put a CUP or something there that I wouldn't just put permitted.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah.
I could see that. Because then at least that's the way you force it. That's why you say, okay, you want to have a shop, but are you manufacturing that here on site? Because that's what we want. We want
Just gonna do a
manufacturing.
shop, go downtown.
Yeah.
So you're pushing it to the areas that you would more want it. So then so there's the pro. The pro
Mhm.
of that is that you're creating a process by which you could easily market it and say, like someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to do this in the M1. I'd be like, it's a CUP, but guess what? Along Ojai Avenue, guess what? It's a permitted use.
Just go-
And yeah, go talk to this person. There's a vacant lot right here, right?
Rents are gonna be cheaper in Bryan Circle than on.
Rents are gonna be cheaper, that's true.
But
So if you
it's-
do a
But space is gonna be
CUP,
bigger.
it's a deterrent because it's not guaranteed, right? From a design review standpoint, it's still not guaranteed because there's specific findings that have to be made, but the litmus test is much lower.
Well, I'm okay with it, as is the restaurant part. I do think it's interesting that it says no outdoor dining in the M1.
Which one, where is this one?
No outdoor dining, yeah. Just right below.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right below
No
cafe,
outdoor
restaurant, cafe, outdoor dining.
which
Not
I would think there
allowed.
might be outdoor dining in this.
In the M1.
CUP?
It probably does make sense for a CUP. Look. Yeah. Yeah, there needs to be some sort of,
Something there.
yeah.
I think you gotta have something.
Okay, so here, okay, but think about it. Here's my pitch, and then that's all I'm gonna say. The whole reason for that is, oh wait, it just isn't allowed in the M1.
Yeah,
right.
it's
Okay,
not,
so that's different. Okay, so never mind, I'm not gonna do the pitch. The pitch is being put to the shelf.
That's
All
right.
All right, all right. So hold on, up above, we were looking at meat markets and gun shops. Were we saying CUPs for both of those in the M1?
I think a gun shop should not be permitted in an M1. You're not making them,
Probably not.
you're not serving lunch with them.
Are you
Yeah,
firing them?
the ammunition pieces,
yeah,
it
you
requires
might,
there's a lot of regulation that goes along with that.
you might be firing them.
That's the only thing I can think, is there like a testing area?
I haven't
I'm not, you know,
bought one lately, so I don't know if that's typical, but
I would be cautious in getting rid of it in the M1.
I would
What
put it to a CUP at the very least.
I would say, I think CUP is the better pinch versus just saying no.
mhm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
interesting. We don't have anything for gun range or
Everything that
firing
I've
range.
questioned in M1,
It's outside the
I
city.
would move to a CUP.
Okay.
What about meat markets?
I think CUP.
CUP? Okay.
Yep.
You want me to just give you an update on this page? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of these uses that are identified on page 12 of 63 that do not have definitions.
Wow. Might be wise to get those at some point, I guess.
Well, I think what I'm getting at, and I'll keep saying this, I'll keep mentioning it. I think there's value in evaluating the need for the definitions. And there may not be a need for some definitions in some of these cases after having the discussion and looking at it further. But I do think it's worth having the discussion.
Yeah.
For the committee.
For consideration, for the discussion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on this page? Are we ready to move on to the next page? Yes? All right, so 13 of 63, table 2-4. It starts with maintenance and repair client site services. That's just in the M1 MPD.
Why would veterinarian, the last one, be not permitted in commercial? They're already there.
They're in the BP zone.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're in the BP.
Like
It's a-
Matilaha, is
Uh-huh.
it Matilaha?
Is that
No,
a-
Ojai Village Vet is BP. Ojai Village Vet, that's business professional zone.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it probably makes sense.
And actually, there was revisions recently that came before this body a few years back. Judy, I think you were here for that one.
Revision to what?
They did an addition in the BP. And it required a amendment to their CUP.
I don't remember that.
Ojai Village Vet?
No, it's the one on Bryant Street. Is that Ojai Village Vet?
No, that's Matilha,
That's Matella, right?
but that's permitted
the one
by
that's-
right.
It's in the BP. It's I'm sorry, it's not identified as BP. It's identified as,
Yeah, M1.
Oh, M1.
oh, it didn't require CUP. It was a permitted use. So it was just a revision to their design. Okay, so
Okay. Satisfied. Oh. I had one question, it's more for table 2.5 in a way, or I guess it's a question about I guess the commercial zone in particular, or it's a larger question. There's, maybe I don't know if we save it for the next thing. It's just that there's nowhere that there are zero, like, lot line buildings or like setbacks. Yet, there are obviously a lot of buildings in Ojai that have no setbacks and have no lot lines. And I wonder in like where, particularly along, Ojai Avenue, that's this kind of commercial corridor and, yeah, I don't know. I'm just, it feels like an interesting thing. It feels like there's no provision for it at all. Unless I'm missing it.
no, you're right. The C1 requires a front yard setback of 10 feet. It's
10
very,
feet. Minimal, or significant.
Well, C1 requires front setback, oh yeah, 10 feet.
But it also requires a side and a rear. And I mean, we have I just bring it, it's something to, we can jump to 2.6, but it was on my mind to talk about at some point, if you're gonna talk about it at some point.
what I think
That's a good one.
would be, I think we should probably separate that one out.
Yeah.
And we can bring that forward. I think it's good to bring some examples of stuff that's existing as a non-conforming
Sure.
piece, and then talk about, there's projects on a regular basis that are in conversation in the C1.
Yeah.
And the first question they ask is, why is there a 10-foot setback in the front yard? That's weird.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, no, there isn't. Then I'm like looking, like, there is.
Yeah,
I'll be darned.
I mean, our
It's the
most, our most kind of coveted area has
celebrated
no
area.
setbacks and no side lots and no anything.
Well, and what does the C1 say? It identifies the need and interest in the parking not being in the front, but actually being tucked in the back, or at least outside of the visibility of the street. So.
although it does provide opportunity for outdoor dining like Topa Topa, right?
Then they can,
True.
it's not saying they can't set back
Right.
10 feet, but give them the opportunity to be at the lot line
Yeah.
and hold a street front. Is sort of like,
Keeps eyes on the street. That's actually a good point as a pro. Yeah. I will be asking someone to help with that one specifically, because that's
kind of a big one.
a big one to kind of sort through. Especially if we just focus on the C1 as a discussion,
Just to see one.
there's a lot of interesting conversations with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm thinking about it mostly as like, as you head east and things are bound to start happening eventually out
some point.
there. Yeah, what's that gonna look like? Because it's more like this stuff is done, obviously, but what's that? How's it then gonna transition into the eastern commercial corridor it's zoned for, but yet to be sort of fully realized?
And it is kind of interesting, because if you look at just the areas where C1 exists and lives, it works as it exists. But is all of it meeting the current standards? The answer is no. But I can't tell you, I don't have an example of a zoning district where every single property that I'm looking at meets the current standards.
No.
That's just not the way
Absolutely not.
zoning regulations operate, right? So I think it's definitely meriting a discussion. If this body is interested in that, I will be assigning someone or asking someone to
Yeah.
help out with that.
Yeah, I mean, there is also an opportunity, there's on the zoning map, we have a 1.5 FAR overlay
Yeah.
district. And you could separate out by zone, some areas where
Zero lot line.
you want zero lot line, yeah. Which is intensified downtown.
Right.
And as you move out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways. Moving on.
Well, but maybe park a discussion piece for
Sure.
that in the future.
I think so. Yeah, that'd be great. Just, I guess it's a map thing. Just the first thing is that on here it says A is for agriculture, and on the zoning map it says AG is for agriculture.
That's noted. That needs to be corrected.
We like A more than AG. Which way you going? Sounds like it's easier to change it actually in Title 10 maybe than the map.
Maybe, maybe. All right, where are we moving on to here? Page 60.
You. Open space, beekeeping, crop production, grazing.
Are we hitting a wall?
Home?
I am.
Judy, you look like you've hit a wall.
Yeah. Not used to.
I'm enjoying the conversation.
I know you are in this.
How does the open space have home occupation and residential accessory uses as permitted?
Okay, which page are we on here?
21.
Oh, you're moving right along.
What am I missing there?
That is an excellent question. So, open space, I think, if you're looking at your zoning map, I think there's only one area, the very northern portion of Ojai that has open space, right? It's that very large
Mm-hmm.
swath. Of course, that's in the hillside area.
You're asking how it's allowed? Is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
It's also to the left, but yeah, up there too. I don't know.
I mean, it's got,
Well, you're allowed a caretaker or employee's quarters, so I suppose that employee can have a home occupation.
well, okay, so for open space, I'm only seeing
Oh,
farm worker
oh, that's
housing
right,
as a CUP.
farm worker.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, a single family. Oh wait, what just happened?
Only
I just
farm
got into a
worker
new
housing.
place. I got into. Yeah.
That might be a rare one, but it's possible that a farm worker wants to have a home occupation. I don't know.
Yeah, what else are they doing there? They got some sort of side hustle going on there.
But what's
It's
the- yeah.
possible.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is,
But where's the?
especially in today's age.
Well, this is. Yeah, but where's the single family, or where's like the other the
Single
main
family isn't
residential
identified in
use?
here. Instead, it's baked into the farm worker housing.
I see.
Residential uses, yeah.
Residential
Yep.
accessory.
There
uses.
isn't identification for single
Farm
family
worker
as,
housing. I see. Farm worker housing.
yeah.
And then if you get that, then you can do a home occupation. Okay, whatever.
So if there is a single-family house up there, it is legal, non-conforming potentially.
I would just say non-conforming. I'm not sure that we could actually find evidence that it would be legal.
Right.
Yeah. Legal non-conforming, to your point, would be at some point we had actually allowed it and then changed the designation. I question whether we would even have evidence.
Before we move on to that, I would like some confirmation that all of these retail uses in M1 get at least changed to a CUP, if not.
So that's a blanket statement, just like we did for the VMU?
It's a blanket statement, yes. I would like that to be much more restrictive than it currently is, based on the limited amount of manufacturing land that we have.
Commissioner Reichschmidt did clarify that for the VMU, we don't know if we want a blanket CUP.
Oh, that's true.
Yes.
Just to-
Did I write that down, though? I did write that down.
Okay, good. So- But you want every sort of clearly commercial use to be a CUP in the M1?
At least, yes. I just don't think that retail sales in and of itself belongs.
Well, here's the fun thing about that. When we bring something back for discussion, we'll have it redlined.
Mhm.
So we'll have it redlined. So when we bring something back, we'll take a look at our work and see if it's as masterful as we had thought when we were conversating about it tonight.
I think that would be it's gonna be a very controversial one.
Yeah, yeah.
Possibly. I remember
Yeah, well,
arguing
there are
about
some
it.
retail shops
Yeah.
currently there,
That are very successful.
yeah, right.
There was an argument back when we had that, the walkthrough in Kent Hall. Remember when all of the zones were being discussed? This was a few years ago.
Oh, you're talking about for the general plan?
Yeah,
Yeah, when we had a workshop there in late 2022.
and at that point, that subject was coming up quite a bit.
Yes.
Anyway,
It was definitely discussed. It's one of the, it's actually ended up tearing off to the discussion for, it was the first discussion on the Fulton Street. That's where that first came up.
just because something is successful there is not a reason to allow more of it to occur there, in my view.
Okay.
Yeah. It is probably a bigger question of like, what are we doing to inspire manufacturing to be happening in Ojai? Because I'm sure some of these, as we say, some of these retail activities are happening there because it's like cheap rent, probably compared to, could they afford to have a
Downtown.
retail space downtown, you know?
Yep.
Where the rents are
Anyway,
quite
that's-
high.
That's
Yeah.
what, I would like to see that.
And before we make recommendations, maybe we get more data of like what is
Yeah.
available, how many empty manufacture R&D units are there?
Mhm.
Because if we have a whole, Bryant Circle full of empty R&D units,
You know what's interesting is I have a new program that allows for me to collect that kind of data.
ooh,
So,
oh, that's great.
do my first litmus test on using it. I'm getting training on it. I was supposed to get it today, but I had to cancel it, so it'll be next week that I'm getting training on it. So,
Cool.
Oh, that would be
Fun.
good information.
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, where are we then?
Then it's the public, quasi-public. No, I guess we're on the institutional, I don't know, nothing,
Can we go to conditional use permits?
Conditional use permits, I have no data on that. Instead, I was pushing that to a meeting where all of us.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that include.
Sounds good to me.
And if we do push that back, can we bring in the design review process in conjunction? Because I don't think you can talk about CUP in a void without talking about DRPs.
Yeah, they kind of run hand in hand. I
Yeah,
agree
they
with that.
do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, yeah,
You know, because some things are, that might be director level at CUP level, but may rise to planning commission for design review.
Mhm.
You know, things like that.
yeah.
I don't know, I just think when you're talking CUP, you have to think about the design review side as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Okay.
Makes sense.
yeah.
okay. In terms of the definitions, do we have to go through that, or does the fact that
What I would-
We've
what I would-
outlined where we might need a few more.
What I would recommend at this point is that I've cited in my notes a number of areas that are missing definitions. Now, I've also experienced, I think even my staff has experienced it, where it would be helpful to have definitions. And what I'll do is I'll go back and have that conversation with staff and say, this is your opportunity. Remind me which ones you think, because right now I have a list of 30 or 40 that are not identified as definitions. Would it be helpful to have definitions in 10 of these? And then we bring back some sort of red line version of that.
Your staff would be the ideal place.
Yeah,
To
I mean, they're
pose
the boots
that
on the street.
question.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else on,
Yeah, so I would say we're not going through definitions. I was just noting that the correlation between the two. It was just
right.
an informational piece.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else before we leave this subject?
Did you open it to public comment?
Can't hear you, Sherry.
Did you open it to public comment?
We did at the I think we did at the beginning.
We did.
Is there public comment now?
Not online.
Oh, okay. No, you need to come up, identify yourself, and preferably fill out a blue card so we have your name.
There we go. Thank you.
Oh, mic testing. My name is Jacob Acosta. Nice to meet you guys. I lived in Ojai for 5 years, and so I have some pretty interesting projects that I feel like will benefit the community, and see how it goes from there. So this is my first time going to something like this. I've been to jury duty, so I kind of understand the concept of coming, saying your spot, and then having 3 minutes to say what you got to say. So I'm gonna keep it short, quick. Okay. So I got.
Wait, are you handing something out?
Yeah, I'm handing something out.
Okay, so you've got to have enough for
Everyone?
everybody here, and then I've got to have a couple at least for the dais in the back.
Sure. I'll just do this one here.
All right,
And then
how many more do you have?
I got a couple. I got a couple.
Wait, hold on, this is the Ojai Dam project?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is located outside the city.
Oh, yeah. That's what Brian and I were talking about earlier.
Okay. Wait, this is a different, that right there is different from, this is not the same.
This says Ojai Dam Project. Oh, this is
What
different.
are these things here?
Same.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a couple more dam projects, but I should have printed that out more because I knew about zoning ordinances and.
Ojai Eco Living Village Business Plan. So here's, I think this information, we'll just make copies of it and provide it as a public comment piece.
Yeah.
So you can keep going.
I have the PDF too online. So.
Okay.
And then this is the last project.
Okay, so you have, I'll just remind the chair, you have 3 minutes to speak.
We'll start that now.
Okay, great.
Okay, Jacob.
So the Eco Living project is for the homeless, 85 units. So it could cash flow and get them on their feet so they have something to do. It's not going to be doing any foundation work. It's going to be pretty above the ground. So it's not temporary, but it's on like a slab, or not a slab, but like foundation blocks. And then the Ojai Dam project is for I was on a hike at the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy, and they said that the Ojai Dam project was a big project for 2030. Whether we're going to take this down, what we're going to do with the sediment, how we're going to go about this project. And I'm proposing a dam that is actually beneficial for trout because they could live in that bowl. So all we'd have to be doing is putting holes inside the dam in order to drain it, and then having a full project there that could cash flow. $13, you could come visit the salmon or the trout and steelhead, come swim in the pools, see Ojai as a tourist visitor, and maybe the pools are heated or cooled. So that's just an idea for visitors and creating more cash flow. And then the visitors map is just kind of something that you could have in order to have people see. I don't know if you've been to Solvang, but they have a kiosk there, and they have like a full map where you could do, this place is cool to go hike, this place has this type of food, this does this type of drinks, type map that you could have to the public. And then for your projects, I've had 3 answers. Actually 7 answers, but like 3 good ones. Because they're pretty hard questions. And so I could start there, so let's try here. For the solar panels. Okay.
Can we give him 3 more minutes?
You're welcome to.
If you do that,
Yes.
you've got to do it for the entire audience, okay?
So far, you're the only one, so,
All right, just making sure.
okay.
Okay, so we got the
Can you speak to the mic a little better? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Hear me, yeah. So for the electric, for the solar panels, that's hard because it does reflect and it does cause magnetic fields. So people get sensitive to like feeling the Wi-Fi, stuff like that. So you could either do wind turbines where it's kind of like a spinning fan, or you figure out some turbine if they want to produce more electricity for the grid. The other one was the rooster's noise. You could either do, if you get 5 complaints, then it's off. If you don't have 5 complaints, then you could pay this fee because this is a noise pollution type deal. So you pay like $30 to have like a rooster or 2 or whatever, and so you cash flow that way. And the Ojai animal service fee for exotic animals, it depends how exotic you go. I've seen iguanas, people like iguanas. I've seen monkeys, people like monkeys. I've seen regular animals. So you have to either offer a service fee and see what happens there. And then for the guest house and ADU, as soon as you start doing foundation work, then there's questions. And as soon as you start putting pipes in, there's questions. I think having a sink is pretty much as far as you can go sometimes. And then for commercial zoning, that is also pretty questionable what commercial zoning is. What are you going to be providing is the service going to be providing for Ojai, or is it going to be providing for external sources? Are you trying to produce oil that's going somewhere else, or are you trying to produce oil that's coming for here? So kind of like figuring out zoning that way. And then also toxic products. Obviously you don't want to produce air and hazardous stuff in the air, so they have to consider that. And then for the meat, there should always be kind of like a designated place for meat. Meat is really scarce because it like spoils really fast. And then people try to mix it in with other meats and make sausages and stuff like that. So if it's a designated place, then that'd be good. For the pistols and for firearms, that's also a questionable place. People like protection and people like to be secure, but also having a spot where people could place their firearms, so they put in a code and it gets you into your storage unit. So you could cause this monthly service fee for that. Because it's like a burden to have like a firearm if you're not really into that, and your family was back in the day, because most of that stuff is handed down after generation to generation. And then for the trash, you could either have bins separated, plastic bins, bottles, metal, aluminum bottles, Amazon cardboard boxes, or like things that are scarce in their commodities, so you could use them for other products. And then I have like probably 7 more projects, but I haven't even started on them. I've just done these 3.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you guys.
Okay. Okay. We will close the public hearing on item 2. And moving along to the scheduling on item 3. And I do have a blue card here from Brian, who's been waiting so patiently.
So, Brian Akins, I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission. Also, I've been on the museum board for 16 years. I like all things historic in Ojai. So, a couple things. I came to the meeting tonight to congratulate you. I was looking through and I looked at future items. I looked at a planning commission tentative agenda, and it says DRP to talk about the property at 242 East Ojai patio at the rear of the Ojai Mountain Farms. And I was going to, after I watched the HPC meeting, your last HPC meeting, and felt like there was a little bit of being muzzled on not being able to talk about this item. Then soon after that, a meeting took place with the planning commission, or with the HPC, and we also personally felt a little muzzled in talking about the refrigerator, the large refrigerator located on the back part of the property. And it's interesting in looking at, and so I was going to congratulate you on it, on having the opportunity to talk on the 21st. When I came here and started talking to the chair, she said, well, you're talking about it tomorrow. And I said, we are not talking about it tomorrow. I can tell you, if we were talking about it tomorrow, I'd have spent the last 3 hours at home with soothing our Jack Russell, who's upset right now because Mommy went to Santa Maria to be with the kids today. So I look forward to possibly having a discussion in the HPC in the future, wherever it may be, but it's not on the agenda for tomorrow.
Are your meetings just once a month?
They are, the second Thursday of the month.
And it's too late to put it on the agenda, I assume. So, okay.
Yeah. Now one thing I wanted to point out. So since our meeting, I did go and get a copy of the zoning clearance for building permit. It's a rather interesting document. One thing I will point out too is if you look on,
Hold on, we're actually talking, we're getting into way too much detail on
Okay.
this project. This is supposed to be light discussion on projects that are being
Oh, yeah,
scheduled,
so
not going to the detail.
anyway, I'm here to congratulate you on having the opportunity to talk about this.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you very
will-
much. Yeah,
we
and
will try to figure it
congratulations
out.
to Jacob, who I met at 3 o'clock this afternoon, kind of been giving him a sign that this isn't a normal planning commission meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Do you want to
So,
respond to that?
we have 2 items scheduled for the 21st. However, looking this over and realizing that really this is the cart before the horse at this point, the first item that's being identified here will have to be moved. And as we had identified previously, it's to a date and uncertain, meaning that we're going to reschedule or renotice for this body.
That requires a motion?
No.
Okay.
No, that's just,
Just
this is
doing
a tentative schedule.
Okay,
It just provides an update of where we think some of these items are.
okay.
Do you know if it was the applicant who requested to pull it from HPC tomorrow night?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It
can't
was
speak to that.
reviewed by HPC December
Oh.
11th.
December 11th?
Yes.
I don't know.
That is my understanding of what Maura intended. She planned to put it on the agenda the night after we met.
So I've got to go back and vet that, because I'm
okay.
not going to put it on for this
Okay.
body to
We'll
review
just
until that's been
Figure it out, okay.
correct.
That
And I'm
lea-
also somewhat confusing that item with the 102 North Signal Street, which is going to be coming before this body because it is coming before HPC tomorrow night. So that one for the 21st is ready, because we'll get comments from HPC tomorrow night.
Okay.
But in terms of the 242 East Ojai Avenue, I've got to have a conversation to make sure that that is and truly ready to move forward, meaning it's already been vetted through HPC. So
Thank you.
Are there any other updates about that project?
I can't disclose any sort of details. You'll see it in the staff report. Yeah, there'll be a lot to discuss.
Okay, so 102 North Signal, that's familiar.
Yep.
We'll need to make
That's,
sure that
it sounds as though we'll have to make sure that we have a quorum
everybody's here. Yeah.
with your sitting out. That sounds like we could tackle one of the items that we said we would set up tonight, like
Wait, are
the
you
commercial
Are
zone.
you talking about
I'm trying to
the-
fill in that open space.
for the February 4th?
January
January
21.
21.
Or January 21. Yeah, I still think we have a meeting. And here's the thing. The things that we listed in the previous item are numerous. So I will be asking for one or two of you to help with some of those efforts. So
The Signal Street does not sound like it's going to be very time consuming. Am I missing something?
Probably accurate.
yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but we've got to talk it through. I think
Depends on what, I guess, HPC
you've got to,
says.
you've got to talk it through, and we'll see what
Okay.
happens tomorrow night. And then there's a number of pending items, and those items are either in review or,
One that says complete. here.
yeah, I just saw that, DRP, CUP, 302 El Paseo Road Restaurant and Outdoor Dining.
So some of those might move up.
Yeah, even though it's complete, we've still got to schedule it, so.
Okay.
I can't imagine that one will be ready for the 21st. I haven't even seen it. Complete from staff standpoint, now I get to look at it.
Okay.
And then a number of them are incomplete or pending. Also, just to be aware, I mean, we are entering the first quarter of 2026. You will be having a joint meeting in the second quarter, potentially the first quarter of of 2026. So just keep on the lookout for that. I have it at the bottom here is when we met last year. You should expect about the same time.
It'll be in June again.
That's the intent. Yeah.
Maybe before.
Probably not before. Yeah. So hopefully everybody's here for that, because it'll be a good opportunity to kind of figure out the work plan.
Okay.
All right.
Moving.
Mention something about the first item.
Yes.
It's been bothering me that a historic preservation commissioner is saying that that project did not go to the Historic Preservation Commission. But I am looking at the minutes, and it shows of the Historic Preservation Commission, and it shows that 242 went to the commission on December 11th.
That's what Sherry says.
And that's what Sherry said. Maybe he left, but maybe he was talking specifically about the freezer. As opposed to, yeah, the outdoor dining component of it.
Because he said that he felt muzzled, as opposed to saying it didn't come up. So he might have meant what you just said. I
Okay,
think.
so I'm just clarifying that.
That's a good point.
Okay.
That is a good
That's very
point.
possible.
Okay, because it did go to the Historic Preservation Commission on the 11th.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll decide whether it stays put or not, right?
Yep.
Okay. Director's report?
Okay, so I've brought this up every time, and I'm going to bring it up again. Director's exemptions, guess what? I just sent one out today. So please review it.
I did.
Okay. I'm making
got
my
your
director's
answer.
report. It's not meant to be. What I'm saying is I've sent it out. Please take a look at it. What I've noticed is that there's been this lax of the director's exemptions, and I want to make sure that you as a body still have a two-step process if you have concerns or questions in regards to it. So I think it's gotten lost in translation with the change in commissioners over the last couple of years. So I just reminding you, check your emails. If you have questions, certainly bring those forward. If you have questions on bringing it forward to this body, certainly have that conversation with me offline.
Good.
All right?
Will
And the
do.
deadline for that is January 22nd.
So you've already looked at yes, it is January 22nd. Yes.
Okay, are there any commission member reports? No. And our city council liaison is unable to be here tonight. So we will go by that. And that means we're ready for adjournment at 8:47.